I'm calling this meeting to order. The time is 5:03 p.m. And first on the agenda is to call roll.
I can field that for you, Janine, if you'd like. Nick Fountain is excused. Vershay Height.
Here.
Harold Millett.
Here.
Janine McCall.
Here.
John Reese.
I'm here.
All right, that's a quorum. Welcome everyone to the June 24th, 2021 meeting of the Raleigh Historic Development Commission's Certificate of Appropriateness Committee. My name is Janine McAuliffe, and I'm sitting in this evening as chair until our regular chair, Nick Fountain, is available to join us if that happens. And I'd like to start by acknowledging that we're conducting this meeting using a remote electronic platform. And I'd ask for your patience today as we proceed, particularly because this is not my typical role. The Certificate of Appropriateness Committee is a quasi-judicial body that's governed by the North Carolina General Statutes and the city's Unified Development Ordinance. And we conduct evidentiary hearings on applications for certificates of appropriateness. Before we begin the evidentiary hearings on today's agenda, I'd like to provide some important information about the steps taken to ensure that each party's due process rights are protected as we proceed in this remote platform. First, this meeting will be conducted in accordance with the enacted statutes and Sessions Law 2020-3, which allow for remote meetings and quasi-judicial hearings during such times as these. Second, each applicant on today's agenda was notified before being placed on the agenda that this meeting would be conducted using this remote electronic platform and has consented to use this platform. Third, notice of this meeting was provided to the applicants and the public in numerous ways. Specifically, notice of today's hearings was provided by mail to all property owners within 100 feet of each subject property. And the letters also stated to contact the city if there were any objections to evidentiary hearings for which the notice was sent. Fourth, that any individual wishing to participate in today's evidentiary hearings was required to sign up prior to the meeting to participate. And this information was included on the RHDC city website, and among other information, a link to the website was included in all methods of notice. And all individuals participating in today's evidentiary hearings were also required to submit a copy of any presentation, documentation, exhibit, or material they wish to submit in the evidentiary hearing today. Finally, all individuals who signed up to participate in today's agenda, as well as all city staff participants, were emailed a witness oath form prior to today's meeting, and any individual planning to testify or submit evidence was notified they must sign and return the oath prior to today's meeting. And we will also reaffirm everyone's oath on the record in today's meeting. So now we will start with introductions for the commissioners. And so I will call everybody by name and let everybody give a brief introduction of themselves. I'll start with myself, Janine McAuliffe, and this is my second term on this commission. My background is in architecture, and I'm a residential designer here in Raleigh. John Reese.
My name is John Reese. This is my first term on the commission. I am a resident of the Glenwood, Brooklyn neighborhood and a practicing architect.
Thanks. Vershay Height.
Hi, I'm Vershay Height. I'm a resident and also architect practicing in Raleigh.
Okay, thank you. Harold Millett.
Hey, I'm Harold Millett. I am a Raleigh native, and I work for an architecture firm here in Raleigh as well.
And we have our attorney representation, Francis Raspberry, with us.
Francis Raspberry, local Raleigh lawyer, and I'm counsel to the committee in the RHDC.
And shall I have staff make introductions?
Sure. I'm Erin Morton. I am staff to the RHDC Preservation Planner for the City of Raleigh. I have a Master's of Science in Historic Preservation from the Clemson and Joint Clemson and College of Charleston program. I've worked in North Carolina for a number of years. And been at this for about a year.
Thank you. I see Colette Canane.
Hi, I'm Colette. I also have a Master's of Science in Historic Preservation, but from the University of Pennsylvania. And I have been working for the City of Raleigh for a little over 3 years.
And staff, do we have Tanya Tully with us tonight?
We do
Tanya is not present.
Okay, thank you. So is that introductions for all?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, so now we are going to look at the minutes, and I'd like to see if we can make a motion to waive the meeting minutes. Motion made by John Reese and seconded by Verche Height. Motion to adopt the minutes. So moved by John Reese and seconded by Verche Height.
Janine,
Yes.
I think it might be important to note for the record that the minutes include the finally adopted findings and decision in each of the cases that were addressed in the minutes of the previous meeting.
Okay. I accept that amendment. All right. Can we move on to the minor works summary? Did we have staff speak to the minor works that we've had in the last month?
Go ahead, Colette.
No, you go ahead. It's fine.
I was going to say, just give me a minute to go check. I don't have it pulled up.
So I do. There were 19 minor works approved between May 13th and June 8th of this year.
Okay, terrific. All right, I think we are now ready to hear applications. Commission members have received a copy of each application, staff reports, and were to have visited each property, and staff reports are made publicly available with the agenda. So we will start with summary proceedings, which we have 2, and unless there are objections as we go through them, they will be approved without an evidentiary hearing with a single vote of the committee. So could staff introduce the first summary proceeding?
Erin will be pulling up that presentation, so one moment.
Okay.
Janine,
Yes.
in the interest of time, in previous meetings, we've kind of bundled that as just one big approval with staff without necessarily going through each one individually. Is it possible we can proceed in that manner this time?
I'll defer that to staff, and I'm not clear whether there's anybody who signed up to speak to any of these, so I'll let them clarify.
This is Colette. So you've done it both ways. It has really just depended on the mood of the meeting. The applicants did sign up for the applications, but no one else signed up. So there isn't anyone else who had wanted to speak on the case.
All right. So if we were to bundle these, are we still looking for staff to pull up and run through them, or should we just vote? We're saying we can just vote on them as a group.
Janine, this is Erin. I can show them if you'd like, but typically we don't pull them up for summary if you don't need to discuss them.
Right. Okay. Well, I think that's fine. And I guess I'm going to look to see if we can get a motion to adopt staff reports as the written record of the committee's action on both summary cases. And John Reese makes that motion. and Verche Height seconds it. And that was you, I guess I need to call each commissioner by name, it says here, to make sure that they've voted. So can I get everyone to raise their right hand if they are voting yes to that motion? And it's Harold Millett, Verche Height, John Reese, and myself. And does that mean that we've approved those summary proceedings?
Yes, that's a unanimous vote.
All right, thank you. So if you're here for that summary proceeding case, it's been approved and formal notification of that decision will be provided, and you'll receive that in approximately 10 business days. And thank you all who came for that, and you're free to leave the meeting. Now we're ready to move on to the evidentiary hearings. Because of the quasi-judicial format of our hearings, we are required by North Carolina law to affirm or swear persons that speak before the commission and offer evidence. So the staff will be sworn in now for all the cases on the agenda. And is that something, Raz, you would do, or would I do that?
Janine, normally you would do that. I emailed you the agenda, the oath form.
Okay, thank you. All right, so this is for staff, Colette Canane and Aaron Morton. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Colette, I do.
And Aaron?
This is Erin. I do.
Okay, thank you. All right. So we're going to introduce the first case.
And one brief thing here is I need to recuse myself from this one, so I'm gonna, with your permission, turn my mic off and sit and watch.
All right, do we need a motion to approve John Reese being recused? I mean, do we need to approve that?
Janine, I would just suggest that he express a reason, the justification or the reason for it, requesting to be recused, and then you can, without objection, recuse him, or you could have it be in the form of a
Thank
motion.
you. Okay,
Yeah, I need to recuse myself because I know too much about the case and I have an opinion. Thank you.
all right, thank you. I think if there's no objection, John Reese may be recused from this case. And let's see, shall we have staff make a presentation?
Apologies. This is also my first time attempting to share during this meeting, so give me just a moment.
Actually, I have a quick question. This may be a silly question, do we have enough now people between the three of us? Yeah.
Yes, we do, right, Raz?
We have enough to act. I think the suggestion that I had offered to the members of the committee was if they would like to ask the applicant, if the applicant was comfortable having the case heard and possibly action taken with just 3 members present, because with 3 present, any action would require a unanimous vote. And sometimes that is troublesome. So I think probably it's reasonable to just ask if the applicant's willing for the case to proceed, or whether the applicant would prefer that it be deferred in light of just having 3 members.
I suppose we could ask that now before we go through the presentation. So if the applicants are present and can speak to whether they're comfortable moving forward with the count of commissioners we have here, or if you would prefer to be deferred to next month's meeting.
It's a little bit of a hard question to answer, as you know, we're out of our element here. We too would like to bring this to closure, of course. I'm sure everybody would. But I don't know. It's a little bit hard for me to answer that, not really, knowing both sides of the coin. So I really don't know how to answer that. I don't know.
I guess what's the downside in continuing?
I think that, well, I'll let Raz speak to that.
Let me just offer this. The Raleigh Board of Adjustment, when they have a written rule of procedure that anytime they have absences or they have excused members such that taking action would require a unanimous vote, they customarily will continue the case. The COA committee does not have anything written on that topic. So we simply, and the committee is entirely authorized to act. You may proceed and take final action with 3 members, but in light of the Board of Adjustments practice, I just suggested to the committee that they might want to offer the applicant the choice. And I think the default is that you'll proceed unless they object to proceeding to hear the case and take action with just 3 members.
I'm fine.
That's fine. I think we're okay.
Okay, so we'll proceed. Thank you for that. So we'll resume the presentation.
All right. Thank you, Erin. So this is case 17/2021 for 713 Hinsdale Street. It is in the Glenwood Brooklyn Historic District, which is a street side HOD. This request has appeared before you 2 times before. So as a reminder, this is a partially after the fact application. And the description was changes to previously approved COA, raise windows, install windows with grills between glass, alter vinyl trim, install ridge vent, alter eaves, expose porch rafter tails, install exterior lights, install wood textured fiber cement siding, install gutters and downspout, install vinyl soffits in addition, remove shed, replace shutters, remove storm door, and not after the fact replacing the fence. Next slide, Erin. So this is a view of the property from Hinsdale Street. Next slide. This is also from Hinsdale Street looking down the east side. Next slide. And this is a view from the intersection of Hinsdale and Gaston. Next slide. This is a view towards the rear of the property from Gaston. Next slide. Again, another view of the rear from Gaston Street. Next slide. And a view of the fence location. Next slide. So staff's suggestion was to discuss the wholesale removal of vinyl siding. If the wholesale removal of vinyl siding on the house constitutes a change requiring a COA, or the possible alteration of the vinyl siding and trim, alterations to the eaves, installation of vinyl soffits on the addition, the exposed rafter tiles on the front porch, and the replacement of windows on the historic house after July 2018. Next slide. The applicants did provide new information, which includes a presentation with additional information. And Damon and Miriam, whenever you're ready, we can pull up your materials.
I think we're good.
Okay. Okay, well, so after our last meeting, we were instructed by the committee to come up with a plan for the items at hand. And we actually wanted to meet with the committee, but staff had said that the best course of action would be to go to the advisory committee to formulate a plan to come to you guys, in which that's exactly what we did. So what we're presenting here today is a result of that meeting with the advisory committee. First item that we have, which is the windows be lowered to match the head height of the historical window openings. That's A. We're willing to lower the 2 windows on the Gaston side to match the window closest to the Hinsdale side on the Gaston side. That will match the head height. The next item is the windows, as far as the sashes. Let's see, the simulated, what,
The wrong windows came in, so they had the grills between the glass. So what we've agreed to do is, or what we're willing to do is to replace the window sashes with clear glass. Since everything else is okay with the windows, they're wood frame windows, so.
the two windows facing Hinsdale would be removed in its entirety because they're all vinyl, and as well as the two windows in the front of the house, so on the east and west side. So total 4 windows will be replaced in its entirety to wood windows and clear glass, 1/1. And then the remainder windows that is in question for the sashes to be replaced to also be 1/1.
Clarify the windows. That's true. The 2 front windows on Hinsdale Street that are vinyl will be replaced with clear glass, all wood, to match the others. And then the windows, the 2 windows that are being lowered will also be replaced with clear glass sashes, as will the 2 windows on the east side that are currently the wood windows will also have clear glass sashes.
Okay. The next item is the hardy plank siding, which does have the smooth side facing out. That has already been taken care of. Go ahead.
So the next item is the discussion about the whole replacement of the vinyl siding. So as we discussed last time, when we were doing this, it was our understanding that we were to assess the wood, and if it wasn't in good condition, we could assess it and then replace in kind the deteriorated or damaged exterior, matching everything to its original shape, material, dimension, pattern, and texture. And what we wanted to emphasize here is that on our original meeting on February 27th, 2020, when we met with, and the committee members are shown as to who we had the meeting with, we went back and reviewed not just the certificate of appropriateness, which gave us the go-ahead as for it, but also what the amendments and conditions were with that. We also went back and actually listened to the entire meeting by video. And there was a discussion regarding the use of vinyl siding for the addition. And the committee noted that no vinyl siding for the addition would be congruent, and so that it needed to be smooth-sided hardy plank, which of course is what we did. And then there was a discussion at that meeting that the Asberries would assess the wood siding of the house during the demo and assess to determine if the wood siding was viable, and if it wasn't, that we would go back with the siding as original to the house, exact same materials, texture, and all of that. At no point during the meeting, were we ever instructed in any way that somebody else had to come into the assessment of the wood siding and to gain approval. And also, it wasn't added as an amendment or a condition on the COA that in fact, if the wood siding was not in good condition, that we had to work with the COA committee to get that approved or disapproved. More than 50% of the wood siding that was there was damaged. Large sections were missing, rotted. We have pictures for the representation of that. And then the replacement, the vinyl that went back was exactly what it was before, same in size, color, and material.
All right. Thank you for clarifying that. I actually recall that case. I was on it when it came through in 2018. So is that the summary of your new proposal? Or your, I guess your comments to the staff report after the DRAC meeting?
On that issue or altogether?
Oh, I didn't know if you were done. I'm sorry. I'm asking if that was complete.
I think there's only one other.
Okay.
There was the alteration to the ease, yeah.
The alteration of the ease, which,
So one of the conditions on the COA, there you go. Yep, one of the conditions was that we had to submit a drawing of the eaves, for which we did. And that's also in the documentation here. And it was done, you know, the eave was built exactly as that picture was depicted that was submitted to the committee. So I think last time there were questions on that about the, not that particular side, but I think it was on the gable side. There was a concern there about the crown.
well, no, I think what you're seeing in that picture actually right there, you're seeing the gutter that extends to the water table of the gable facing Gaston, to whereas there wasn't, well, there was no gutters on it when we bought the house, and of course, until we did the renovation. So there was no gutter there. But as far as the design, the soffit dimensions themselves, the size of the water table, all of that is exactly as it was before. So the only difference that I can see is that there's a gutter there, and then there was crown that had been covered over by aluminum cladding, which doesn't allow you to actually put gutters on it because it's not a smooth surface. If you want to discuss that, I'm open to discuss it and explain it if there's some confusion. But as far as the design of the gable soffits, they're identical. And then the last item, which is the exposed rafter tails facing Hinsdale, that one we easily can put a fascia board on that. We left it open as it seemed like it was more historical to leave the rafter tails open, but putting a fascia board over there is absolutely willing to do that.
Thank you. I think just while you're talking about the eaves, wasn't there some discussion or comment you all had about your treatment of the eaves with the vinyl versus hardy?
Yes. Thank you. You're right. And as far as the existing will be replaced with fiber cement. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And before we go on, I'd like to ask council, I did not swear them in with an oath. Is that something I missed, and do I need to do that now?
I thought these folks had were sworn in, but you need to do that, and better now than just
I will do that. And then to that point, was there is that something I do at the beginning of every case, or did I miss a global effort there?
Well, the committee has done mass swearing-ins, and they have, I think probably the most, and staff can comment, but the most common way to handle this is at the commencement of each case.
Okay.
You call the names of everyone, including staff, unless you swear the staff in universally at the beginning, to make sure you don't miss anyone.
Okay, thank you. So sorry, I'm going to have to interrupt just to ask our applicants if I could swear them in with this oath. And Damon, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
And Miriam Ashbury, same question. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you, and I apologize for that.
Janine, before you stop, you should also swear in. There are 3 other speakers for this case.
I don't have any names before me. Is that something?
I just emailed the document to you. But for this case, we have Jason Renzaglia, Rhett Fussell, and Lisa Hewitt.
Okay, you'll have to wait till I pull them up if you want me to. let me go ahead and I heard Lisa Hewitt. Let me ask you, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. And Jason, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your last name. Can you give us your name, Jason?
Renzaglia.
Thank you, Jason Renzaglia. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that this testimony you are about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. And give me a second to pull up the third name unless someone can give that to me again.
The third person is Rhett Fussell.
Rhett, could you pronounce your name for us?
Yeah, Rhett Fussell.
Okay, thank you. Do you solemnly swear that or affirm that this testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. So that puts us back with hearing new evidence from our applicants. Shall we go ahead and see if there's more comments from them, or if we should ask for anybody wishing to speak up in support or opposition to this case at this time? Is there anybody here to speak up for or support of this case? Anybody here to speak up in opposition to this case?
Yes.
Is that Lisa?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead, Lisa, we'll hear from you.
And I think Jason, John, and Rhett also are planning to speak. So just FYI. So let me just, I'll be brief, but thank you for letting me have the opportunity to speak again today. I live across the street at 712 Hinsdale and have been a resident here since '93. At this point, I actually consider myself lucky not to have gone through this process, at least not yet anyway. During the April meeting, my concerns were about the process and how to make homeowners aware that an HOD existed. Since the last meeting, however, my concerns have been more about equity. I do not envy the members of this board having to deal with implementing what I would consider relatively new guidelines, especially when each case has its own little special quirks. However, when you do make decisions, you've set precedents that other applicants should be required to follow. That, in my opinion, doesn't seem to be the case with this application. Window placement and type, ridge vent design, and in particular, the siding appear to be somewhat negotiable. At least that's my perspective. And this is detrimental to everyone involved, and it unnecessarily pits neighbors against each other. And I don't like that. Now I'd like to briefly address some of the items under discussion. As was mentioned in the staff report, all of the windows previous to the new addition were replaced with vinyl grilled windows after the HOD, and that the trim packages on these windows are not historical in nature. I know there's a lengthy piece in the applicant's documents about wooden windows, but that's not my understanding of what's been installed. I'm seeking clarity that all of the windows will be replaced with wood and historical trim packages and sills. I'm not entirely clear on this point, particularly what I heard from what the Asburys described today, and would just ask that the RHDC be on site to review, since you're already asking the applicants to show you the new windows and approve prior to installation. And personally, I like the exposed rafters, the rafter tails on the front, and think that having the existing ridge vent, because it is a little bit larger, is economical with respect to HVAC systems. I'd like to speak more on the siding, but I'm going to leave that to Jason, who's better positioned to discuss on that. Personally, I really like the cute character that this house has been allowed to become, which is a far cry from the rooming house that it was when I first moved into the neighborhood, as you can imagine. And I want to reiterate that I have no ill will towards the Asburys. They have been kind, courteous, and have had excellent neighbors residing at 713 Hinsdale since they have owned the property. I'll end by saying that I think there still needs to be some more checkpoints written into the process, the guidelines or the approved agreements between RHDC and the applicants to avoid these costly situations in the future. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Is there another speaker? And I think it sounds as though I need to give John Reese the oath if he's going to be speaking. And
Janine, John did not sign up.
Oh,
to
okay,
speak
sorry.
In advance, so he cannot.
Okay, sorry, I thought I heard that. Okay, is there somebody else who'd like to speak?
Yes, I would like to speak. This is Jason Renzaglia.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. I've got probably about 2 or 3 minutes of talk here that I want, but I want to start by just saying that you guys have a tough job, and but I am frustrated with the committee and the commission, and I just want to point some things out. In today's staff report, staff is suggesting that the committee discuss whether wholesale removal of vinyl siding on the house constitutes a change requiring a COA. Also, in the staff report today, there's a condition, condition C2, that I want to highlight, that I believe it's not fully correct, and I'm requesting that the commission address this. The condition reads, the prior application requested the removal of the vinyl and stated that the wood siding that exists underneath the vinyl siding would be repaired if it were in good condition. Vinyl siding and trim were reinstalled. Evidence of the condition of the wood siding was not provided. Well, that's really not the entire story. And I'm requesting at this time that the RHD staff correct condition C2 based on what was specifically said in the prior application. In the prior application, the applicant actually said, quote, once we remove the back wall, if the wood lap siding is in good condition, we will take down the vinyl siding on the entire house and use hardy plank for the addition. If the wood lap is not in good condition, we will leave the vinyl siding and continue the vinyl on the addition. So I'm requesting that the commission acknowledge in today's discussion that the decisions in the approved meeting minutes say absolutely nothing about the original vinyl siding on the front 50% of the house. And this is where the problem originates. The commission failed to address it, even though the applicant's own statement said that they might, quote, take down the vinyl siding on the entire house, and they might, quote, leave the vinyl siding as is. I also want to point out that the committee and staff failed to consider that the whole entire Gaston Street side of this house, including the original house and the addition, should be regulated as a front-facing facade in front of the 50% line because it's a corner lot. So what we have today is that the applicant removed all the original vinyl siding and replaced it with brand new vinyl siding on the entire house, except on the addition where the applicant has installed a hardy plank, which means that the commission has allowed a house in a historic neighborhood to install 2 different siding materials on a front-facing facade, the Gaston Street side. So the questions I have is should this really be allowed? Is the committee setting a precedent for future street side historic projects? Would the committee ever approve this had they addressed the siding issue properly in the original application? Look, our issue is not with the owners. Our issue is with the inconsistencies with what the staff and commission have created with this project. Where I'm coming from here is that I also had vinyl siding on my house at 709 Hinsdale, 2 doors down, when I originally purchased it. We were told by staff that we had to submit a minor COA to remove the siding, and then once it was down, we had a condition that we had to leave that wood siding in place and restore it unless we could prove that it was beyond repair. We followed staff's recommendations and went with wood siding for our entire house, including our addition. Honestly, it boils down to us feeling like we've been treated unfairly. Had we known we could replace the old vinyl siding with new vinyl siding without any approval process and or put hardy plank on our addition, which at the time staff recommended to us to deny, or actually staff recommended to the committee to deny our request and defer our application. But had we known these things, that 713 is getting to do, we would have seriously considered doing these things for our own cost savings. So if the committee allows these things for 713, then it feels like we're just suckers who we're out extra money that we've spent. And it leaves us wondering if we have a legal case for seeking compensation from the city. So I will end by reiterating my request that the meeting minutes reflect my request for staff to correct condition C2 in today's staff report for the record, and to remind the committee that there are two different brand new siding materials, vinyl and hardy plank, that have been installed on a front-facing facade on this house under the committee's supervision. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you for your comments. Shall we hear from anybody else? Was there one more speaker?
Yeah, Janine, the last
so-
speaker is Rhett.
Yeah.
All right, Rhett, would you like to speak?
Yeah, I just want to add to, I agree with what Jason said. It's more about precedent, that it had already been set on one side of my house. One thing was done, and on the other side of my house, another thing was done. It sends a mixed message, and it also encourages people in the future to do exactly what was done here, and that is do it and ask for forgiveness after the fact. I would also like to state that the windows has been a discussion, and I think that all of the windows in at least on the original part of the house, were not in were replaced before or after the historic overlay went into point. But it looks like in point B here on the request by the Asberries, that not all of the windows are going to be addressed. And so I would like for all of them to be addressed because they all should be consistent. I also would like to point out that we've only said that the windows on the east side, which is the side that faces my house, are not going to be addressed except for just replacing them with clear glass. When in fact, I presented last time that the windows themselves have actually changed. Not only the position of the windows, but the size of the windows has been increased, or at least the window that is second in line has been increased almost double than what it was before. And so I can't understand why you would allow that to happen, as well as replacing the ones on the Gaston side by lowering them. Why would it not be done consistently on my side as well, since you can see them from the street? And I would request that the window itself be replaced at its original size, not at the double length that has now been replaced. And frankly, I agree with Jason that this whole thing has been a disaster and has created an issue that the committee and the RHDC should have addressed up front, and is setting a terrible precedent in the long terms. So with that, I will stop, and I am going to hang out because I have another meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fussell. I think that was all the public that had signed up to speak on this, and I think we still have the applicants here. If there is questions from the commissioners for them before we close a public hearing. And I guess I would just start with asking for just some clarity. So we got some information from you all, I would say pretty very recently, that we were trying to absorb, we commissioners, just trying to understand your suggestions for responses to the staff comments. And what I do want some clarity on is, I think some of what is being asked here, there's just some confusion about. We've gone sort of piecemeal around the house, but could the applicants please clarify for us whether all the windows sort of wholesale will be remedied to be wood, and it sounds like there will not be any vinyl anymore, and they'll all be lowered to their original position. Was that correct?
Yeah, thanks Janine, let me just clarify because I think some of the speakers that are speaking in opposition are confused. There are no, the vinyl windows, there are only 4 vinyl windows in the whole entire house. They're the front 2 windows on Hinsdale and then one on east side, one on the west side. They're in the front 50%. Those are being replaced with full wood windows with clear sashes. The other windows in the rest of the house are wood. Let me make it perfectly clear that the windows are the approved size that was in the original plan. The window sizes did not change. So if you go back to the plans, it had the window dimensions on there, and that is exactly what was installed. They were not doubled in size. They were exactly what was on the plans. The clear sashes are going to be to replace so that there will not be the vinyl GBG, the grill between the glass. So just to again clarify, so the 3 windows on Gaston's side will all be clear glass. They will be wood windows. The 2 in the front of the house will be clear glass. They're wood windows. The east side, the first window is vinyl. It will be wood. It'll be clear glass. The next 2 windows that are in the COA's purview they are wood windows. They will be replaced to clear glass. There will only be 2 windows on that side that remain, but it's my understanding that those don't even come into the purview of the COA.
And Ms. Asbury, as far as the height of them, they will all be lowered to the original height of those windows?
Yeah, so thanks.
Okay.
So let me clarify. None of the windows are actually in any historical location from what we found. But the Gaston side will have the windows will be lowered to meet the head height of the first initial window. This is what when we met with the advisory committee, this is what, they suggested that we do, and we're willing to do that. So we're willing to lower them and we're willing to absorb the cost to replace them all.
Okay.
The ones on the east side, they were saying that since it wasn't so much viewable, that they didn't feel that it was necessary for those 2 to be lowered, but that would be left up to the committee.
All right, thank you, Ms. Asbury. I would like to, I'm understanding Ms. Hewitt would like to speak on the windows, if she'd like to speak now.
Yes, I think we can continue going back and forth on this, especially since all of the commissioners are not here. They have prior history that may not be being brought up. And I would like to see one of the commissioners come down to the site and go through it window by window, because I was here watching those windows being reinstalled after the HOD. I saw all of those windows being taken, all of the old windows being taken down and new windows being installed before any of the new addition was put up. And the fact that Rhett's side of the house, because it's not viewable, they can remain up to a higher height. I can still see them, and I live across the street. So let's just be consistent. We keep this is the whole negotiation thing all over again.
Okay, well, thank you, Ms. Hewitt, for your comments. I do want to mention that this is the street side HOD, and just to be clear that our purview is not the entire house, it is on the street sides, and I know it's a corner lot, so we've got those 2 facades, and then it's the 50% of the side that is on the east is in our purview. So just I think I'm speaking correctly, if staff needs to correct me on that, but that's our purview here.
Janine, this is Erin. I'll just confirm that, and that's the front 50% prior to the construction of the addition.
Thank you. I'd really like to get some commissioners discussing this in the interest of time. I think we've got a lot of people that had a lot to say here, and I appreciate that, but can I see if there's anybody that needs me to keep this open for the public, or shall we close this public portion? Speaking to the commissioners. Okay, then I'd like to close the public portion of the hearing now and move to internal discussion. Can I get comments from our commissioners on this case? Thoughts?
Yeah, Janine, this is
Okay,
Virginia. I'll jump in just to kind of get us kicked off. And, you know, to be completely transparent, you know, you kind of saw in the notes that the Ospreys presented that I was not a part of the original case. I missed that one, so I'm playing a little bit of catch up with everything, but I think I'm caught up. So I guess my question for the committee, and something maybe that I overlooked within the context of these notes, is regard to the vinyl versus the wood siding. Kind of at face value, I would, you know, respectfully understand the concerns that have been brought up about using vinyl on a historic building, especially, you know, through, I think, the conversations and what's been presented throughout previous applications, that at least 50% of the wood siding on the project was in good shape. And that would potentially warrant, you know, the kind of replacement and use of wood siding on the remainder of the project. So I'm just wondering, and I see that staff says to kind of discuss that, but I'm not sure what the previous committee comments and discussion were on those items or on that item.
Well, I think what I'm looking at for staff suggestion for the committee to discuss, it's whether the wholesale removal of the vinyl siding on the house constitutes a change requiring a COA, specifically because I'll try to find the guideline here, but the guideline meaning that if replacement of the exterior of a house with exact material, if you came back with that, that would not be a major works HOA. And staff can correct me if I'm wrong there. And so I think it goes back to whether or not the call was made correctly that the vinyl siding needed to go back down because the wood underneath it was not in good enough shape to restore.
Janine, this is Colette. If you'd like me to elaborate on the routine maintenance.
Sure, thank you, Colette, yes.
Sure, so typically when an applicant comes to staff asking for advice on a COA application, if the change does not result in a change in dimension, material, appearance, so for example, a front stoop, the wood is rotten, the wood is replaced. If the end result is identical to what was there previously, even though the wood is new and it's in good condition, a COA is not needed because it's considered routine maintenance. So the question that we are posing to the committee here is, if this change is a change in appearance, details, dimensions, or is this routine maintenance?
And Colette, just to be clear, that is applicable to a vinyl siding, which is not original. It's still an applicable discussion.
That is why we're posing this to you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so my take on this is complicated because I think part of the comments here are that perhaps this vinyl siding went back and it is not a perfect match to the original. I did the best I could studying the photos to think that it was the same exposure and it was a good match, a similar. So I don't quite know that I can confirm that or not, but I guess the call we need to make is whether or not the wholesale removal was a change requiring a COA. Harold, do you have thoughts?
I mean, I don't, my initial gut reaction to this is no. When broken down to if it was just a, maintenance of the property versus a whole new design of this facade, there's really no way, because there was no evidence provided to us what this siding looked like beforehand. So I don't know. That's where I am also stuck. Like, how do you determine if this is true maintenance if previously you were not, you didn't have a clear idea of what the siding, the condition of the siding was in.
Well, I think we've heard some concessions from these applicants to address some of the staff concerns and comments, particularly remedying the vinyl soffits and lowering windows that were originally approved in a different location. And those, I think, are appreciated concessions. And I guess the treatment to the windows, are there some thoughts on how we feel about the solutions being proposed by the applicants with those?
I think
Harold?
I think, yeah, sorry.
Go
I
ahead.
think the applicant, they provided the evidence and, remedied whatever concerns we originally had for the treatment of the windows. So I would say yes, that is sufficient.
Roche, did you have a comment?
Yes, I was going to say I appreciate them working with Jack and the clarification about actually kind of changing out the 4 vinyl windows for wood windows and adjusting the kind of sill or head height to match the existing. I guess to Harold's previous point, and again, forgive me if I'm missing something in the documentation, but as far, I also have some concerns about proportion. That seems to be an issue that's coming up as well with regard to these openings, and not knowing what was there and how it's I know they're obviously a different size if we're talking about lowering, head heights to kind of be respectful of what's existing, but what's the sort of one-to-one comparison for making that judgment call?
I'm sorry, Roche, you're asking what about calling the heights of the windows?
Yeah, so I guess with regard to the windows, are they, and again, it's because I just don't have the detailed history with this one, but with regard to the heights of the windows, is that the issue, or is there a deeper issue about the proportion and things like that? Or is it just the head height that was the problem?
I think originally the windows that were approved were installed at a higher height, and that was the issue, but also that some were vinyl and some had the simulated the grills between the glass. So it was kind of a combination. I don't know that I've heard that the sizes are different, if that's what you're asking. I don't think I've heard that's the case. And if staff wants to correct me, they can.
Janine, this is Colette. Whenever you feel ready, the applicants have chatted the moderator. So they are willing to provide more information if you'd like to reopen the hearing whenever you're at a point in your internal discussion.
Okay. I will say, just as we're still in the internal discussion phase, this has come before us several times now, and I'd like to see what we can provide to move things forward if we can. I feel as though there's just a lot of conversation that we're absorbing tonight and have just gotten new information. So if we can't kind of pull this together, I just want us trying to move on for, the sake of helping these people get some information from us that can be helpful here. But unless there's a objection, I would like to open this back up to the applicants so that they can comment again.
No, well, before you do that, I guess I am just trying to, again, gain clarity and understanding. And I think, I know that this has been discussed at previous sessions, but I also haven't been a part of those, and we are down a person and all of the things. So I just, for the sake of what's written in staff notes, what I understand is that the things that are noted in after the 90-day adoption of the minutes, the A about the windows being lowered to match the head height, they've agreed to. B, as far as all of those windows and the way that they're noted being replaced with wood. And I know that there was not mention of the divided lights being 1-to-1, but maybe just a confirmation, but it sounds like that's the direction that things are headed. And so really, we're down to the wood versus vinyl siding as the decision, right? And how to move forward with that.
I feel like that's an accurate summary from my perspective. And I guess we can toss in there whether the rafter tails need to be covered up again. And I honestly think that although that detail may not be original to the house, that's not an unusual articulation. So to me, that's we can talk about that, what everybody thinks about that. But I think that's true. If we've got windows in the correct location and we've got the eaves now being the hardy that was approved, I'm sorry, on the vinyl soffits, and replacement windows being wood, I guess kind of to your point, Verche, if we can kind of make a decision on how we're feeling with the vinyl siding that went back up, might be the one place that we still need to determine our take on it. And I think, something that I think has happened in this project is just the kind of timeline of it has been part of where we are today, because it wasn't all conceived of all at once, right? So there was an addition that was conceived of, and then the siding was intended to be wood, and the fact that it went back with vinyl is sort of why we've got that two materials on these exterior facades that are street side. So I think just noting that it wasn't sort of all conceived as a solution all at once, I think is worth noting on that issue with the siding. And I guess to stay on the topic of siding, I guess I'd open this up to the applicants if there's any more comments on the siding, unless there's objection. Again, I sort of want to see if we can get to a motion here. But if there's no objection from other commissioners, I'll go ahead and open this back up to the applicants for their thoughts on that. So applicants, Asbury's, please speak.
Yeah. Thank you for giving us the chance to speak. I think there is some, we want to try and eliminate the confusion because it can be confusing. So yes, the windows all, at the end of the day, they will all be wood, and the sashes facing the Gaston side will all be 1/1, which is what staff recommendations, as well as the two front facing Gaston, as well as the one facing the opposite side of Gaston. I think the east side, right. The height of the remainder windows going down the east side will remain at the same height, but the sashes will be replaced to 1/1 for the first three. That's right, for the first three. So one of the comments been made by one of the neighbors is that they observed us replacing the windows. That's correct, but we are also replacing them with wood windows. At the end of the day, there will be no vinyl windows in that house. I don't know how else to say that.
And then just one other point, I don't know why, but there continues to be confusion over the window sizes. They did not change according to plan. They are exactly what the windows that were approved on February 27th of 2020, that the committee approved back in February 2020, are the windows that were installed for the size. So I'm not sure if we're saying something that sounds confusing. We did not change the size of the windows.
Okay, thank you for.
Oh, wait.
Yes.
I'm sorry. And then as for the whole, the siding replacement. So again, if we go back to the February 27th meeting, right, where you guys were instructing us that the addition had to be hardy. We didn't understand that at first, but then you guys explained to us as to why, and the beauty ban, the separation and all of that. And then we discussed about if, when we were working on the house, if we thought that the wood siding was in good shape, we would keep it. Otherwise, we were going to go back with the vinyl. We did submit pictures. More than 50% of that house of the wood had large missing gaps, lots of deterioration. So back to kind of like that maintenance issue, it was more than 50% of the wood siding that was either missing or deteriorated in very poor condition. So we weren't instructed nor given an amendment or a condition that we had to have staff be involved in it. When the decision to say, okay, look, this is all missing, this is all, never was it instructed or provided as a condition or amendment. So it's not like we did it willy-nilly, for sure, because of course we wouldn't want to be in the position that we're in now.
We just made the decision based on the meeting that we had. We assess it, it's bad, we go back with the exact same vinyl siding. And let me clarify, it is exact, the same size, same texture, the corner boards, the J channel, all of it is a 100% match. So according to us, we're moving in the direction that you guys told us to move.
Okay. All right, thank you. I'm going to close this hearing once again,
Okay.
and turn to internal discussion. And I think, I think I'd like to see if there might be a motion that we'd like to make here. Or if we feel as though we need more information, if we need to request that.
I'm willing to give a motion a shot.
Okay, Harold, go ahead.
Okay. So based on information in the application and the staff's and committee's evaluation, raising the windows and installing windows with grills between the glass, what I want to say here is are incongruous according to guidelines 2.71, 2.79, 11, 13, 3.2.9, and the following suggested facts 1 through 11. Shall we stop there? Continue through the whole
And you
application.
continue.
Okay. All right. And altering eaves, exposing porch rafter tails, including rigid vents, removing a storm door, replacing shutters, installing gutters and downspouts, and installing exterior lights are not incongruous in concept according to guidelines 2.1.11, 2.5.1, 2.5.8, 2.6.5, 2.8.1, 3.2.8, 3.2.9. However, exposing the rafter tails on the porch and altering the location of eaves. I know we didn't discuss that, but for the sake of the motion, I want to say that this is it is incongruous. It is not incongruous according to guidelines 2.5.1, 2.5.5, 2.6.9, 2.6.11, 2.8.10, and installing oversized shutters is incongruous according to guidelines 2.7.8 and the following suggested facts 1 through 9. Also, altering trim and installing siding are not incongruous in concept according to guidelines sections 2.1.11, 2.6.5, 2.8.1, 3.2.8, 3.2.9. However, the installation of vinyl soffits in the addition and the installation of wood textured fiber cement siding are incongruous in accordance to guidelines 3.2.8, 3.2.9, and the wholesale replacement of vinyl siding with trim modifications are are incongruous according to guidelines 2.6.10 and the following suggested facts 1 through 5. And lastly, removing a shed and relocating a fence are not incongruous in concept according to guidelines 1.3.1, 0.9, 1.4.4, 0.8, 0.11, and 1.6.1, and the following suggested facts 1 through 3. So,
Okay, is there a second on his motion? And any discussion? I did want to ask staff, do we need to put into the initial comment here that also we're taking into account the new additional information that the applicants have provided, which does kind of change some of what these statings of facts are, or I guess maybe that's just the findings that we'll have to change.
Hi, Jeannie, this is Colette. So you can, if you'd like, note which facts you'd like to have changed. If you have been circling them or, you know, have noted them as we've been going through the meetings. But when you get to the decision, noting that the application has been amended, you can.
Could also be how we deal with that, you're saying?
Yes, you'll note that the application has been amended. And if there are any facts that you want to add based on what you've heard today or in previous meetings, that you specifically want to note and add as a fact, you can, you know, speak that out now as well. Alternatively, there have been other applications where you've made a decision and implemented the conditions and decided to do a vote on the conclusions and findings at a later meeting, which Raz can speak more to if you'd like.
All right, that Raz, is what would be the benefit of doing that, if you could tell us?
Just what, I'll respond to that, Janine, but one thing I did want to mention was the motion that's finally approved should note that it's based upon not just the application and staff's evaluation, but all the evidence received at the hearings.
Yeah.
Hearings plural is the basis for the decision, not just staff's evaluation.
Thank you.
And let me ask you just to restate the question, if you would.
Yeah, so what Colette was just mentioning about Colette, could you repeat what you were suggesting was an option for us as far as conditions?
Well, it actually was in regards to the facts. Instead of trying to amend and add or edit, delete facts during the meeting, if you'd like staff to go through and do that and save that portion for the following meeting, that's something I've done before.
Yeah, I think in this case that would be really helpful. And Harold, would you be amenable to adding that as Raz is mentioning, that this is to your motion, this is based on the new information and the evidentiary hearing, not just staff report?
yes.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Was there any discussion? Did we get a second on that? And Shay Height seconds that. All right. So is there a follow-up motion?
Sorry, I'm a little confused. So what is the follow-up motion pertaining to what comes next, or any modifications or addressing the citing issue, or?
Jeannie, this is Colette. I think you may want to take a vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So we'll take a vote on Harold's motion. All in favor, raise your right hand. And that is Harold and myself and Roche. All against, raise your hand.
Let me
Appreciate
just ask a question. So I am, just to be clear, I am in full agreement with things that were stated for points A, B, and D. I do believe though that for C, the wholesale replacement of vinyl siding for trim modifications is incongruous according to the guidelines. So I just want to be clear on that.
All right. So what's the next step? Could I ask Raz?
Sure. Let me suggest this, Janine. The witnesses for the applicant noted, I see 4 or 5 items that they would be willing to do or to alter in order to address issues that the staff recommended findings pointed out as possible incongruity. The conditions A through C seem to correlate with most of those issues. I still note the rafter tails as not being something that is in my mind has been clearly, the committee hasn't indicated, at least I have not heard agreement on that point by the committee. And also addressing the question of the siding, the old siding, the new siding, evaluating the condition and the direction that the owner proceeded in. I think it's pretty important just to make sure that the 4 or 5 items that the applicant discussed specifically correlate or not with A through E of the conditions. And then if there's some gap areas, I imagine staff would like to be clear on what the committee is deciding on those sub-points, if you will.
All right.
And I have a handle on that, but I don't think I should. I think it's the committee's charge to sort of rush through those 5 or 6 things.
Okay. So shall we go through these and just speak to whether they're being addressed and how we've decided on them as far as the, I guess, these are not exactly conditions, I'd say. They're just modifications to, or I'm not sure what to call those, but what the applicant is agreeing to have happen, that they are going to lower the head heights of the historic window openings, and that the windows 3, 4, 6, 7, and 9 are being replaced with wood windows, and they'll be 1/1 with no, I believe, no simulated lights. Is what I heard, and that the window specifications and sections will be provided to and approved by staff prior to installation. So we'll look at those details, and that the hardy plank on the addition be installed smooth side out. It's my understanding it is smooth side out. I think there was one little area that was shown in a photo once that I could expect they could adjust that so that fix that so that is all consistently smooth side out. And we heard that the soffits on the addition will be replaced with fiber cement. And I would say, as far as the rafter tails, that the applicants stated that they're willing to put that trim board back. And I say that sounds like something that I would support. And if anybody wants to If you all agree on that, we can add that in here as well. And I think I guess this last item E here is maybe the one to unpack a little bit, that the installation of the vinyl siding, I guess, you know, I'm trying to find, and maybe staff can help me, the guideline that says putting back an existing material in kind is not incongruous. And I appreciate that it's vinyl siding, but that's sort of what I'm reading the guidelines as, is that they did, that was the guideline that they were adhering to. And staff, I don't know if you could find that for me. I don't have it written down.
Give us 1 minute.
Thank you.
This is Erin. While we're waiting on that, Harold, I just wanted to make sure I was tracking your motion. Can you confirm that you said is incongruous in terms of the wholesale siding replacement?
Yes, that's what I said, or intended to say. I don't know if I said it, but yes.
Okay, and Janine, that was
I heard it. No, so unfortunately, I heard it was not incongruous. And again, I'm basing it on the fact that it's not new vinyl siding going up. This is based on that, based on the guideline that says it can be replaced exactly as is if it's a maintenance issue.
I guess where I'm having pause and resolve, Janine, on that is that in the staff report, you know, I'm looking at, again, under C, item 1, where it says the previous application stated that the historic house was clad in 8-inch vinyl siding. Based on photographs, staff believes that this was an error and the siding was actually 5 or 6 inches. I think we heard one of the witnesses speak in depth to item 2, so, you know, that's something probably worth correcting at some point down the line. But also item 3, that kind of ending, the last in that, evidence to support the congruity of faux wood grain was not provided. Going also down to item 5 in this same area. I know this is talking about eaves, soffits, overhangs, and things like that, materials, but the materials were not specified. And again, it ends in evidence to support the congruity of vinyl in the addition was not provided. So I just have some concerns about whether there's been evidentiary support that says that the vinyl that is even then installed is congruous with what was even previously there, even though I would advocate for even though the state of the wood was what it was, I would have advocated for a replacement for like material, because the detailing between vinyl and wood certainly does change when you're installing and designing. And I think that speaks to the character of the property.
All right, well, I'm not sure I'm clear where you're saying there's wood, but the historic wood, which is not exposed for shade.
Yeah, so our responsibility then is the thought that our responsibility then is the historic wood that was covered up with vinyl. We're not supposed to be protecting the house as it were with the historic wood, but the house as it is with the vinyl.
My understanding is putting the vinyl back is it is the vinyl that's being put back in the exact exposure and detailing as it was, even though it is not historic. That was the charge, is to see if that was you know, against guidelines.
Okay. And so that kind of undercuts the fact that if the wood was in good shape, then the vinyl would stay on.
I have to say this is complicated because we're not going to be able to sit here and confirm whether that vinyl is an exact match to what was there, nor can we confirm whether that siding, that original wood siding, was indeed deteriorated beyond repair to the point where that vinyl siding needed to go back. So, you know, I'm a little bit concerned about, and maybe staff can help me here, just kind of what we can hang our hat on here for this. Or Raz.
I will offer this, Janine. Most of the issues that you've addressed really relate to overall congruity with respect to what was done. But the vinyl siding replacement, I think the issue for you is whether the action taken by the owner under the terms of the original COA were reasonably in compliance with those terms. That's not the investigation you normally make, obviously, but that's really where this process is leading you as to that issue, and you have to do it based on whatever evidence you heard today. And I will add this, I think that while the committee appreciates hearing evidence from the speakers regarding other properties and other scenarios, because I think you hear the frustration loud and clear, but to some degree you have to have tunnel vision because it's simply impossible for you to compare this with the scenarios involved in the other properties. So you have to have tunnel vision and look at just the evidence that relates to the COA before and the evidence you've had during the hearings on this case.
Thank you. That's helpful.
It is. Thank you, Raz. Okay. Okay. I understand now. And I think I understand as far as, you know, how far back in time or what we're trying to protect. And I think then that certainly the vinyl approach and the maintenance kind of replacement strategy to that falls within that category. I just was trying to verify that there wasn't some other kind of point in time that needed to be acknowledged in lieu of the vinyl being applied to the facade. So with that, I mean, I don't know if it's time. I can make a motion based on what staff has got here or whatever you'd like.
Well, I wonder, so what I think we said was that, Harold, your motion was that the vinyl siding was incongruous. Was that correct?
Yes, yes. My intentions in that first motion was to approve the vinyl siding.
Okay, so gotcha. It is, you're trying to say it is not incongruous and not incongruous with the guidelines is what you meant to say. And that is what I thought you said. So you're trying to say that the vinyl siding replacement is meeting the guidelines.
Correct. And yes, and I considered
okay.
it.
Then we're on the same page. Okay. So we've gotten that far.
This is Colette. I hate to interrupt you when you're on a roll. I would suggest that you add specific facts.
Okay.
If that is the way you are deciding to the circumstances of this application.
Okay. So would the specific facts be that the owners had determined that the existing wood siding upon removal of the original vinyl was more than 50% unsalvageable, and so the vinyl siding was put back as a matter of routine maintenance, and it was put back in the exact exposure and detailing as previously? Could that be one of our?
Yes, I've got it typed out. We'll take care of that.
Okay, great. All right, any other facts we want to?
Yeah, I think you covered everything in that one really nicely. So at least the one I was concerned about.
All right. Okay, well, I'm going to keep moving us forward, I guess. Is there Harold, have you got a follow-up motion?
Yes, I think so. So this follow-up motion is, should I just say, it's not, so the follow-up motion is saying the approval of throughout our discussion. Like, how do I do the follow-up motion here?
Raz, did you want to?
Yeah, Jenny, what I think I think staff has a reasonably clear picture of the findings and the decision of the committee. If you like, just a simple motion to, and this is just a suggestion, if I could be off base, but a motion to approve the application subject to the conditions of the staff report as modified by the new information as well as the agreements of the landowner to address the problem areas, and that staff be instructed to prepare findings, conclusions with the council's assistance and come back to you next hearing.
I think that's a great recommendation, and that's inclusive of their last submittal to us with all of those modifications they're willing to make. So can that serve as our motion, or does Harold need to summarize for you? Harold,
I don't make motions, so there really doesn't.
Okay, Harold, you want to try to kind of
Okay.
say that back?
Let's give it a shot. I motion that committee approve the application with the evidence provided to us, and is it
with the concessions of the homeowners that were brought to us
with the concessions of the homeowners
in this meeting and the conversation. Mm-hmm.
Yes, the concessions of the homeowners brought to us within this meeting, and
that staff will go ahead and summarize for us those for us to review at the next meeting. Is that correct, Raz?
Yeah, it would be formalized findings together with the formal statement of the decision and the conditions and qualifications.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It is. It's way too much. Lawyers in court and judges would have a nightmare trying to condense all this on the fly and put it into a neat document. So it'll be worked on, but I think staff has got a clear enough direction about the decision and also findings behind the decision.
Okay, great. All right. So with that motion, is there a second? All right, all in favor? And that's unanimous. So that motion passes. So thank you, everyone. I know this has been an ongoing conversation, and we'll look forward to wrapping this up with those findings at the next meeting. So thank you. All right. Hopefully that's the outlier for the timeline. We'll try to move along now. That was Hinsdale, so now we're going to move on to the 601 Cutler Street.
Yes. Do we have to do a motion to bring
Yes.
John back?
Is there yep. All in favor of bringing John Reese back into our meeting? Unanimous? Please join us, John.
I'm not too sure I want to. This is hard.
All right, are we ready to move on to the next case? Is there anybody I need to swear in?
Yes, Janine, this is Aaron. Eric Cohen is here to speak.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Cohen, let me get my little cheat sheet. I'm not a lawyer. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Okay, and staff, can we get a summary of this case?
Yes, let me pull up the application or the presentation. There are a lot of buttons to get that together. All right, this is case COA 53 2021 for 601 Cutler Street in the Boylan Heights Historic District. A portion of this application was approved at the May 27th meeting, and a portion was deferred. So this is the portion deferred for this meeting, which includes removal of the front steps, construction of new front steps, alter existing fences, and construct brick piers at existing side gate. This is a view of 601 Cutler from Cutler Street. It is a corner property. And this is along the side facade of the property. You can see the rear yard and existing fence where a majority of the work is proposed. And coming around to the back alley and rear yard. And a view of the rear yard looking back out towards West Lenoir. And additional rear yard photos. Staff suggestion is to approve with conditions, and new information provided by the applicant includes additional neighborhood examples of brick front steps.
Thank you for that. All right, so would that applicant like to speak? To any of these conditions or the staff report?
Yes, please.
Comment on? Okay. And give us your name again?
Yeah, Eric Cohen.
Eric Cohen, thank you.
All right. So one of the issues that we brought up was making brick piers on the side gate. That's something that we're not pursuing anymore, based on some of the notes and the hearing last month.
Okay.
Today, we're really hoping to get approval on using brick for our front steps. The steps at this point are hazardous. They've sunk, the concrete is sunken in. Multiple people have tripped, including my grandma, cutting her leg, walking up those stairs. Multiple homes in our neighborhood, or many homes in our neighborhood, use brick, but the example we were asked to look at was stairs that are in between brick cheeks with concrete tops. And we found 6 examples in our neighborhood with brick stairs in that specific setting with the brick cheeks and concrete top. So we actually aren't going to remove the steps. It would just be adding brick on top of the concrete. So it wouldn't be fully taking down the steps. Anything else I should add? And yep, that's it for now.
Okay, thank you. And I didn't hear of anybody signed up to speak about this case, so I will see if there are any questions for the applicants from the commissioners while we've got the public section open. And John Reese?
Yeah, I saw in the additional information that you all had provided 2 additional examples, both of them on South Street. Are they around the corner from you?
They are they're, I guess, 1 street south, and then they're a block east of Boylan Avenue. So very, very close.
Wonderful. And I noticed too in the staff comments that those 2 specific examples were not commented on from staff perspective. Can staff tell us if those, because I noticed that in the other examples that were provided by the applicant, staff noted that those were done in 1998, 1995, and or they were done without a COA approval, or were done without any permit process. Do we know on staff's level whether the two examples that the applicant provided on South Street, what their history is?
Hey, John, this is Erin. So there was a staff evidence document uploaded to board docs along with the new information. We did look into those two examples. 632 West South Street is actually located just outside of the Boylan Heights boundary. So no COA would have been required for any previous or current work to that property, although it does appear to be a historic structure. 640 West South Street is located inside the HOD boundary, and we have no COA on file for the conversion of those steps to brick if that happened. We only have a 2000 demo by neglect case in the file, so we do have some photos from 2001 associated with that show the same brick front steps at that time. They appear to be a different brick material from the cheek wall, so it's likely that they were not installed at the same time, but other than that, we're not sure if they're original or when that change would have happened.
Okay, and back to the applicant again. Can you help me understand more about why you want to use the brick, why it's so important to you?
Well, a couple of reasons. One is we prefer that from a aesthetic perspective. And then we also think the cost will be considerably lower than having to pump up concrete stairs to do it properly. We were told if we just lay concrete on top of the stairs that are sinking, that they could crack. Yeah. Because the concretes are different. So it's cost and aesthetic mainly.
I see. In either case, you would have to demo the existing stairs, obviously, because you're right. The adding brick on top of adding concrete on top of the existing concrete is just asking for more maintenance and more trouble. Okay, thank you. I appreciate your information.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions for this applicant? Harold?
Yeah, I had a question for the applicant. Just to be clear, the examples you provided showed bricks, masonry steps, as well as brick on the path leading up to the house. Are you is this just a replacement of the steps, or do you plan to extend the brick out into the yard as well?
The plan is just to use brick on the steps, not on the pathway. The brick would be painted to match the foundation and to match the brick cheeks on the sides. So it won't stand out like a different material. It will blend in with what's already there.
And Vershare Height, you have a question?
Yeah, just a quick question for the applicant. Had you explored, demolishing and kind of rebuilding the steps? I know you have concerns with the sinking, which is completely valid. Brick is going to be lighter than doing a concrete solution, but it's still, if they're sinking now, they're probably going to continue to do so. Just curious if you thought about that.
We haven't explored that. I don't, not much. I mean, I just think it would be more expensive to go that route. So we were I get your point that they may continue to sink. This has happened over a 100-year period, and I don't know when most of the sinking occurred. So that would, I guess, is not our preferred route to start from scratch.
All right. John Reese has another question.
I just wanted to jump in here real quick and kind of give you my professional advice scenario is that if you've got a bad foundation, you've got a bad foundation. And that if you keep that foundation based on whatever material you put there, it's going to sink and it's going to crack and cause you maintenance. I understand your concern about the cost. I think it would behoove you, though, to at least get an estimate for what the cost of concrete steps would be with a new foundation, because what you're paying for in that scenario is not the material itself, but the rock solid bedrock scenario, which will allow those steps to stay there forever versus having to do the same thing again within a couple of years or 5 years or whenever it was when that, if you don't want to build on that foundation. So I think that thinking about that relative to concrete versus brick, once you've done the foundation piece there with concrete down below, you've already got the concrete guys there. You're not having to change into a mason scenario to try to get those steps repaired. Just my advice.
Okay, thank you.
All right, unless there's any objections, I'd like to close the public hearing portion and open to internal discussion. So, John Reese.
Yeah, I think that this is a pretty clear-cut scenario because it is pretty well outlined in the guidelines about replacement of materials that are not congruous with the neighborhood history, and provided that the staff has provided information about the existing brick steps that they have shown evidence of are not done with an approval process and or were done at a later date, that none of them are original to the existing structure. I think where our hands are tied in this scenario, as much as we may like like brick or painted brick or anything like that, I think aesthetics aside, the issue here is really stabilizing the steps, and concrete is a more appropriate material than doing the brick. And so for that reason, I think it's kind of a open and shut case relative to going back to the concrete.
Are there any other thoughts on that? I will say I agree with what John's saying, only because I don't see that the character of the neighborhood supports the brick between the brick cheeks. So I'm inclined to agree that this needs to come back as concrete. If there's no discussion, does anybody want to try a motion? John?
Thank you. Let me get to it real quick. Based on the information contained in this application and the staff's evaluation and the evidence of this hearing, removing the front steps, constructing 2 front steps, and altering the existing fencing is not in congruence with concepts according to guidelines 1.3.1, 1.3.2, 0.4, 0.7, 0.8, 0.9, 1.4.1 through 5, and 1.4.8. However, the construction of stylistically anachronistic painted brick front steps and brick piers at the existing side gate is incongruous according to guideline 1.3.9, 1.3.12, and the following suggested facts 1 through 8.
All right, is there a second? Shea Height seconds. Is there any discussion? And we take a vote on that. All in favor? It's unanimous. And is there a follow-up motion? Yes, John Reese.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve this application based on the following conditions 1 through 5 as provided by staff.
And is there a second? Shea Height. Is there any discussion? All in favor of that motion, raise your hand. And that's unanimous. And that is approved with conditions. Thank you to the applicant. All right. We'll move on to our first new case of the night, Linden Avenue. Is there anybody to swear in?
Janine, yes, we have here Jenny Farmer and let's see.
And Mike Farmer.
Okay. Jenny and Mike Farmer, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Jenny Farmer?
Yes.
And Mike Farmer?
Yes, sorry, I was
There
still
you go.
muted. Yep.
Okay, sorry about that. All right, great.
Okay.
We're set. Can staff share for us introduce this project?
Just wait one moment while the presentation loads. All right, this is case COA 0060-2021 for 207 Linden Avenue. It is in the Oakwood Historic District, which is a general HOD. The request is to construct a screen porch addition with an exterior fireplace. Next slide. This is a view of the front of the house from Linden. Next slide. This is a view of the rear yard. Next slide. This is a view of the rear yard, just a little to the south of the previous picture you saw. Next slide. And this is a view from the end of the driveway looking into the rear yard. Next slide. Staff's suggestion is to defer the application until the following information is provided: a tree survey identifying any trees greater than 8 inches DBH on this and adjacent properties, and a tree protection plan if the CRZ of any of the trees are located within the construction zone, an original and proposed built area and built mass calculations. Next slide. Pending the receipt of the above materials, staff suggests that the committee discuss the congruity of the increase in built mass. And new materials were not provided.
Thank you. All right, that was going to be my question because I didn't see new materials. So would the applicant like to speak to the staff notes and comments?
JP, I suggest starting with Mike Farmer.
Hey guys, yeah, thank you very much. I apologize, I'm at an airport, so hopefully you can hear me okay. The first part is we don't have any trees on our property. We have one tree that does overhang into the property that our plan was to have an arborist identify what needs to be trimmed and actually do the trimming for us.
All right, and there was comments about built mass as well.
Yeah, I guess I'm unclear on exactly what we're looking for there. I think we showed the whole plot of the property with the existing structures and then what the proposed structure was. Is there something different we need to show there?
Yeah, and I think if staff wants to comment, but that's typically their calculations that are provided to us to just show the existing built mass versus what's being proposed, so we understand that change.
Yeah, in essence, what we're doing is tearing out a brick patio that's in very poor repair and proposing to put a screen porch right over the top of that area where that brick patio is.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for the applicant while we've got this open? John Reese?
Yeah, I had you answered my question about the tree thing right off the bat because I looked at all the photographs and everything and I thought I didn't see any trees here. So it kind of begged the question of what we talk about with a tree protection program. The other issue that I noted in the application was that you are building this screen porch over the existing brick patio that's already there. So there is already that impervious surface is already in place. So you're not like taking up open space in terms of greenery or drainage or things like that will further impact any kind of percolation of water or something like that through there. Is that correct?
That's It's 100% correct, sir.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify those 2 points. But the other question I had was, you've got a very small yard right now.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and you're going to make it smaller.
Yeah, it's and from our perspective, we have a couple spots for us some outdoor seating, but we were hoping to put the screen porch to give us kind of a little more flexibility on the room that we could use, you know, through more seasons and have less bugs. So
yeah, I get that. I get that. We are in the South. I get that.
and
okay.
and there's a deck that steps out from the back of our house there as well, so we're not really losing a significant amount of area.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
All right, were there any other questions for the applicant?
I do have one. Just
Okay.
a question. Yeah, sorry. I do have one question. Maybe it's a confirmation. The stone patio that's shown in the plan, I think from what I'm seeing in the photos, the circular stone patio, that's also existing, or is that something that you're adding?
That's existing.
Okay. So to John's point, not much green space left for you guys after this.
Right.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, unless there's any disagreement, I will close the public portion of this hearing right now and open to internal discussion. I do have a question for staff. When there is no trees to be said on the property, is it adequate and an adequate substitute to simply say there's no trees and not have to show a drawing with no trees for the tree protection plan?
Hey, this is Colette. Yes, we have used that in the past. I think our concern was that any potential trees that they are critical root zone, even if they're on an adjacent property, we should still be considering those. And due to its location, we were not sure about the trees on the neighboring property and if those may be impacted by the construction.
I understand. Okay. So that could still be helpful to have a tree protection plan based on adjacent properties. I do think it's important for us to get the built analyses of the changes that we're approving here. So my feeling is we don't have that information to make a motion on this tonight, other than to request that we get that. John Reese?
I agree with you that we shouldn't necessarily make a decision on this, but I do think that, you know, one of staff's comments was to discuss that kind of built area just from a visual standpoint. And I think we can go ahead and do that if that's okay.
Sure.
Sure.
Comments, go ahead.
Yeah, from just a visual standpoint and from looking at the design, I'm not really bothered by the extension of the roof, because basically what they're doing is just extending the they're stretching over a little bit of the shed roof to create a pitch, which will then shed onto the existing property. And so they're really only adding a very small amount of roof with the fireplace into an area over an existing patio, which already is impervious. Now, granted, I get the tree protection issue because of roots from a neighboring property. And in this scenario, they would have to create foundations for that screen porch that may impact part of those tree roots, which, if there are any in that area. I think the request here from the applicant is to confirm that there are no tree roots from existing properties that are going to be impacted by creating the new pier foundations for the new screen porch. But as a built mass scenario, while I don't have the calculations in front of me, and you're correct, I think we should see those. From a visual standpoint, I don't find it to be so obtrusive that it begins to overpower and or cause any kind of shadowing from the existing yard, since it's pretty much already such a low-flung little addition.
All right, are there other comments? Okay, I feel as though we should be, my thought is that we're missing some information to make this call on, so I don't know if anybody agrees with that or anyone would like to make a motion. John Reese?
Yeah, I move that we defer this application until the missing information is provided.
Specifically built mass calculations?
Specifically the built mass calculations and confirmation of any kind of tree roots relative to the pier foundation footings that are going to be required to build this porch.
And that would be including, right, any neighbors, friendly amendment, just including neighbor properties as well.
Exactly. I think there are technical issues, but there's still ones that we need to make sure that we cover the base on.
Okay, is there a second to that motion? For Shay Height seconds. Any discussion? All in favor? Raise your hand, and that's unanimous. And is there, I guess there's no follow-up needed for that. All right, so thank you to the applicant. And so we're looking for additional information and staff will get with you to request that. All right, moving on to our next case. Is there anybody that I would need to swear in on this case?
Janine, this is Erin. Mary Grillo is here.
Mary Grillo, okay. All right. Mary Grillo, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. And my husband is here with me too, Troy Maddox.
Okay. And Aaron and Colette, is that somebody signed up to speak as well?
Unfortunately, no. So Mary will be the only allowed to speak.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you, Mary, for understanding that. Okay. So do we want to get our introduction, please? Sorry.
All right. This is case COA 61-2021 for 610 Polk Street in the Oakwood Historic District. The request is to remove a historic metal shingle roof and install a standing seam metal roof. This is an image of 610 Polk Street taken from the street. You can see a portion of the roof here and a better straight on view. The request is not for the front porch, but for the main portion of the house. This is an aerial view supplied by the applicant where you can see all areas of existing roofing. And a detail shot, I believe this is the east side of the house where you see the increased deterioration. Staff suggestion is to determine whether the roof is deteriorated beyond repair, and should the committee choose to approve the application, staff offers conditions. Janine, you're muted.
I was, thank you. All right, so thank you for that. Does the applicant want to speak at this time?
Yes, we believe that the roof is beyond repair. We have tried sealing it several times over the years. And at this point, the roof does not have an underlayment to protect from condensation. That would make it difficult to seal it to prevent further damage and leakage. We have a system of buckets up in the attic that we empty every time it rains, and we have supporting letters from roofers who have let us know that it needs to be replaced.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Do we have any questions for the applicant from the commission? John Reese?
Yes. I hear your pain relative to the roof, and I also understand, based on reading from the reports from your various contractors relative to the rust sections, that it is definitely a scenario where I think a replacement is warranted. What I don't get yet is there seem to be different shingle options presented in your application. And the one that is in the request is a standing seam, but there are other profiles that are provided. Can you give me a better understanding of what your intent is here, or are we shopping together?
So our request is to replace it with a standing seam metal roof. That is for a couple of reasons. Mostly for the aesthetic, it would be the same, about approximately the same color of metal that's already there. So as far as we know, the shingled roof was put in 1920. They don't make those shingles anymore. And the Historic District Commission was kind enough to offer some other shingle options. However, some of them appear quite modern. There's one that has a Victorian kind of style to it, but I don't think that, we're just not going to find that same fish scale pattern that was there before. And so I think the best option right now is to go with the standing seam metal, and also just we have several pitches. The house, as far as we know, has had 5 small additions over the many years, and so there's lots of different corners and crevices, and that's why we went with that option.
I understand. Was there no shingle that you were happy with?
Not as much as the standing seam metal, no. And aesthetically, there wasn't a shingle that we were happy with. Mm-hmm. We're not going to find the fish scale again.
Yeah, that's correct. That's very true. And which is unfortunate,
No, it's a beautiful roof, and it served
us
really well, and we've tried really hard to save it for as long as we could.
Yeah, I get that. And what is the material of the standing seam roof that you're proposing? Because I'm going through the various ones. I'm not quite. Are you still using the Rhine zinc for everything, or is it
aluminum?
Aluminum.
Right? Yeah, aluminum.
Aluminum. Okay.
It's not tin.
No, that's aluminum, and it might be painted the same color as it is.
Okay. That's not a zinc.
No, not a zinc.
Okay.
So we also are unsure of the exact composition of the fish scale shingles. We were told that it could either be zinc or it could be tin, but we would need to remove at least one shingle in order to have it tested to determine what exactly it is. There are so many coats of paint and different coatings over the top that it's hard to say.
Yeah, my guess is that because it's been painted, it is tin. Because barns are typically that are done in tin are always painted, and that's how they've maintained them over years. The reason you have rust on your roof is because somebody forgot to paint the roof. Mm. Whereas an aluminum scenario, depending on how it's detailed, can be easily dented with hail. And so I'm a little concerned about the materiality that you're choosing. I would prefer that it, going along the lines of zinc versus aluminum. But I think that's up for the committee to kind of talk about a little bit more. And also relative to the standing seam, is this a true standing seam, or is this what we call a 5V, which is a less expensive version of a metal roof?
It's a true standing seam, and I believe that the aluminum was the thickest that was available.
Okay. Okay. All right. That's helpful to understand. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Were there any other questions for the applicant? And if Harold Millett, do you have a question?
Yeah, I had a question. It looks like, is this the information provided to us, the Barrage Victorian and Classic shingles? Was that also an option, or did you receive that option from somewhere else? That's the question to the owner.
We received that option from RHDC.
So what we're saying is that you all have spec'd. I see that there's a there's sort of a proposal here in your application for a Galvalume Kynar coated metal roof, and that's what you're suggesting. And then some of these other options might have come from the State Historical Preservation Office. Is that what we're saying, or from our staff? Just to be clear.
Yes.
Janine, this is Erin. A lot of the options put forth by staff for the applicant to consider were in consultation with SHPO. So
Okay.
it's coming from the technical services branch, Brett Sturm in particular.
I followed this.
Sorry, Jeff Adolphson.
Thank you. And I think that was maybe a little part of the confusion that John might have had was we were reading the email exchanges, but then the specs on them all were just kind of all together. So it was a little unclear whether the applicant was proposing any of the above or if that was some suggestions from that were coming up during these discussions. So that's helpful. So it sounds like from what I'm hearing, the applicant is proposing just the standing seam option.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Was there any other questions for the applicant before we close this portion? Verche Height?
Yeah, I guess I just have one quick confirmation. So this, I'm looking through everything. So the standing seam option, we do not have a visual image of that, right? Like I know what that looks like, but you know, it hasn't been provided in.
There is an image of a sample material. Unfortunately, it's striated, but the actual roof would not be striated. But we did present a picture of a sample with the color.
Trying to look for it.
I think it's on.
And I think if we were,
I didn't see it either. What page?
It's on page 13 of
Okay.
the COA.
I'll comment that, you know, I think the conversation is well, for us to have is whether we are okay with not going back with the shingles if we think that, first of all, if this is beyond repair and not going back with shingles is okay. I think we could ask if it was standing seam was acceptable that they provide the specs, colors, all that information to staff.
Janine, I agree with you 100% about providing material samples in some level. I know that's impossible to do in a virtual meeting like this, but it does make the difference. I personally am in support of them being able to install a new metal roof, because looking at the condition of the existing roof and knowing that it has not been maintained, because for it to have been maintained, it needed to be painted. And there is no way to go back and repair all of that rust. Because the only solution is to get all the rust off, get it down to a level that there are no holes in the existing roof, and then go back with another paint coat to basically protect it. And in that regard, I don't know that this metal roof, based on the visual condition that I can see, is able to have that happen. So
And-
that's my sense. Yeah.
Thank you. And before we go on, I'll go ahead and close this public hearing portion of this. Also, we can continue this conversation. I will say too, we've been provided some reports on it by at least one roofer who is in agreement with you on the that this roof needs to be replaced, John. So I will say it's not just based on our looking at these photos that we can make that call as well. Are there any other thoughts? For Shay Hyde?
Yes, I would agree. Also, as far as the roof being replacement, and also the applicant's comments regarding the performance of the roof as well. So that would be changed. I don't know if we're talking about this part of it now, but I do not believe that the standing seam roof would be the best option, especially if there, are viable kind of metal shingled roof options that are more in character, and, better meet guidelines. I think it was 2.5.5 and 2.5.7. I do believe that a standing seam roof would be a pretty big departure from what's currently there.
I would say too that the shingles, they're very unique and they're very character. It's quite a character feature of this house. So I can understand. I agree with those thoughts too, for Shay.
I too am in agreement with that. I think that the standing seam metal roof, while may be appropriate given other neighborhoods, I think for this specific neighborhood at that specific time frame, a shingle is much more appropriate than standing seam. And I meant metal shingle, not
right.
Yeah.
Verche.
And I would also add, and I don't know if technically I can do this, but I would also add in the options provided to the applicant. I know there's mention of the fish scale sort of aesthetic, and while you can't get a true match, I'm kind of seeing the patterning and repeat proposed by staff and the Victorian option. Again, not necessarily telling them what to do, but to me that certainly gets the closest and much closer than a standing seam metal roof would.
All right, so I think what I'm hearing is there's comments that the existing shingles have done a great job and served us well, and they are not something that the experts and we believe can be repaired to stay, and that coming back with something similar versus the standing seam metal roof is kind of the conversation that we're having. All right. Any other thoughts, or does somebody want to try to make a motion? Was there thoughts? Anybody have a thought? Okay. Anybody have a motion? All right. John Reese?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let me make sure I got this right. Based on the information contained in the application, the staff's evaluation, and the evidentiary information in this hearing, removing a historic metal shingle roof and installing a new metal roof is not incongruous in concept according to the guidelines sections 2.5.5. However, removing a historic metal shingle roof that is not deteriorated beyond repair is incongruous according to guidelines sections 2.5.2.3.5. And replacing the character defining shingle design with standing seam metal roofing is incongruous according to guidelines sections 2.5.5.7 and the following suggested facts 1 through 15. I need to kind of put a little amendment in here saying that we have agreed that the metal roof is deteriorated beyond repair, or at least judged so, and therefore is congruous with those guideline sections because it is deteriorated beyond repair. Does that make sense?
So John, this is Aaron. We
Yeah.
can either amend what we are calling out as congruous versus incongruous at the top of the section header, since we're essentially saying the replacement of a deteriorated roof is not incongruous, or we could add a fact 16 that essentially states that the committee found the roof to be deteriorated beyond repair based on contractor roof assessment and statements by the applicant at the hearing.
Agree. I like number 16. If that's okay with the.
All right. Okay, is there a second to that motion? That's Harold Millett. And is there any discussion? All right, is there a follow-up motion? John?
Yes. I move that we approve this application with the following conditions, 1 through 4, as written by staff.
And is there a second on, or, yep, second on that is Verche Height. Any discussion? All in favor? Raise your hand. And that's unanimous. So approval with conditions. And I guess the question I would have is how the homeowner can proceed with getting approval of a shingle. Would that just be something staff brings? Would that come back to us, or is that something staff could handle?
I'm personally okay with staff handling it.
And does staff need to weigh in on that?
This is Aaron. That's a good question. I think that we have an opinion about what could work there and would be congruous, but that would, I'm not sure that we've seen metal shingle replacements before, so that might be something the committee wants to take a look at.
I personally would like to take a look at it because this may be a bigger challenge than we're expecting.
Yeah.
So does that mean it comes back?
Sure, we can have it approved as a basically administrative review by the committee at the next meeting, or whenever the.
But you could also add a condition that says that the shingle be brought back before the committee, even though you already had that vote.
For approval. Yes. Okay.
I'm happy to amend the motion to include that condition.
All right. That sounds good. I think we already took a vote. Do we need to vote on that again with that amendment?
I think so.
Okay. All in favor? And that's unanimous. Did we do that right, Raz? You're muted.
Probably is.
Raz, sorry, you're muted.
The electronic rules require roll call votes, and the intent of that is simply that everyone's vote be shown in the record, not just a call by the chair that it either carried or didn't carry.
Okay.
So if it's unanimous and the record shows who's there, we're probably okay. Safest bet is just to call out the names.
Okay. So we'll just do another vote, and all in favor of that motion is John Reese votes yes, Verche Height votes yes, and Harold Millett votes yes, and so do I. So that carries. So thank you to the applicant, and we're going to move on to the next case, and I am requesting to be recused because it is a case that is coming through my day job, my office. So
Janine, this is Colette. John, please correct me. You need to leave soon-ish, correct?
Wait, I am going to be called away probably at around 7:45. I have probably, depending on the length of this case, I can possibly participate in this one, but I may have to be pulled away. I'll only be gone for about 15 minutes or so.
I guess that's a decision for you all to make. If John gets pulled away before you get to a vote, there will not be enough members for a quorum. So you can begin to hear the case, but then if he leaves, you would not be able to defer it with a quorum.
And I think also we wanted to give the applicants the chance if they, I mean, whomever steps in, we'll give them the chance, as we did with the previous case, if they wanted to defer their case, but I'm not chair at this point for that case.
Raz, this is Aaron. Correct me if I'm wrong. Sorry, John, I understood that once you were gone, but it sounds like you might be rejoining the meeting at some point.
If it's possible.
Is there a potential that we could push this case to later on in the meeting to ensure that we're able to have a vote? Raz, or?
Well, let me say this. You could either take the case up and procedurally, you could take a motion to defer the case as soon as John had to leave, understanding that you could not take further action and shouldn't deliberate or hear any evidence after that point. Or you could just displace it to a later time in this meeting if that's workable, if John's confident that he's coming at a time certain and you can count on that. So I think you're either just going to say we'll spend 20 minutes on this case and then it will be deferred if we don't come to a decision, or we'll push it back to a later time. That's what I would suggest as options for you.
I'm good with those.
So this is Colette again, with Janine as false chair, not currently present for this application. Vershay or Harold, would one of you like to be fill-in chair momentarily for this case? Someone will need to be volunteer chair.
And I think, Colette, I think there needs to be a motion that to deal with the numbers present and the chair having to recuse. I think there needs to be a motion that for purposes of this case, you vote on a chair. Someone volunteer and take a vote to approve it.
So we need to make a motion to pick a chair temporarily.
Something like a nomination process, yes, but there needs to be a vote that is official, that there's a stand-in chair.
Okay, I would nominate Vershay as a stand-in chair for Vershay Height. Is there a second on that? John Reese, and can we take a vote? All right, John Reese is aye, Vershay is aye, and Harold's aye, and so am I, so it's unanimous. And am I able to be recused now?
This is Aaron. I guess that's up to Vershay now to conduct.
Okay. So I'm, wait, I don't make motions now.
Vershay, I think you could just say unless there's an objection, we'll excuse Janine.
Okay, unless there's an objection, we'll excuse Janine. Are there any objections? Okay, great. Okay, let's try to get into this one quickly. Let's see, Aaron or Colette, do you want to start with the staff report for this one?
Vershay, yes, but before we get going, do you want to swear in those who are here to speak on the case? That would be Adam Wyndham and Will Alphin.
Okay, I have no script for this.
Jade, Vershay, this is Colette. I sent it to you via email.
Okay.
I don't have Adam Wyndham on the call, but I do have Will Alphin on the call.
Okay, thanks, JP. As soon as we get this pulled up, we'll swear in Will.
Okay, is this the affirmation? Yes? No.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see.
I think it's on page 4.
That's I don't need to go through the quasi judicial format thing. We've already done that, right? That's what's on page 4. Okay, well, we might lose John with the amount of time that it takes me to figure this out.
Yeah, Versailles, it's on page 4. It's the third heading down.
Okay, and who did you say was signed up to speak?
It's Will Alphin.
Will Alphin, could you state your name and address for the record?
Will Alphin, 926 Tower Street in Raleigh.
Great, thank you. And then could you affirm?
Versailles, this is Erin. The quote that you could essentially read out for Will is under the staff affirmation section as well.
Okay.
So that's on the same page. It begins with, "Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give?"
All right. Do you solemnly swear that the or affirm that the testimony you are about to give on the matters on today's agenda is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Great. Thank you for your patience. All
I'll
right.
get the staff presentation pulled up momentarily.
Thank you.
All right, this is case 64/2021 for 415 North Boundary Street in the Oakwood Historic District. The work request is to install new awnings on a non-historic garage, remove existing rear person door, install new side person door, alter existing front garage door, install new rear garage door, and construct a 4-foot tall fence. This is an image of 415 North Boundary from North Boundary. This is a corner property, and the proposed work will be on the left side of this photo. This is the existing garage, which was approved with a previous COA and recently completed. This is the east elevation where the new person door is proposed. Well, no, this is the other side. I apologize. And the existing rear and the west facade, and a general overview of the side yard where the fence is proposed partially. Staff suggestion is to discuss the congruity of the second garage door and its proposed all glass design and the installation of a rear awning on a garage, and to deny the installation of the awning on the front of the garage and approve the remainder of the application with conditions. There was new information provided by the applicant, including a neighborhood fence example to support the proposed height.
Let's see, would the applicant have any evidence or have any statements that they'd like to make in support of the application?
Yes, absolutely. So I'll try to address the sort of the 3 different areas. So under A, adding the rear garage opening and basically the changes to the non-historic garage. We did go before DRAC with Fred Belladin and Elizabeth Caliendo in attendance, and they really saw that as a large operable window. There is a drop off directly behind the garage that would keep, so it's not for vehicular traffic is what I'm saying. So it's really just a large operable window. Let's think of it that way. It's a non-historic garage, and it is the rear of the garage, so it's the non-street facing side that can't be seen from the street. So that's what I wanted to say about that. In regards to the awnings, again, the main house or the main building was originally a commercial structure. And so it has that sort of parapet storefront on that, and the garage was designed in a similar fashion. We have a minor work application in for an awning on the front of that storefront portion of the original structure that I think will be approved, just pending materials. And on the non-historic garage building, we want to add 2 fixed awnings. They're not retractable. And we know that a previous, one of the things that's cited is that it's unusual to have an overhang over a garage door, but we know that a pergola type structure was approved over garage at 408 East Lane Street. That was information that the RHDC staff shared with us. And it's just it's a fabric awning, so it won't be permanently damaging or alter the structure. It is removable. And then in regards to the fence, we submitted that additional information that showed a very similar situation where there's a commercial building in historic Oakwood on the corner of North Bloodworth and East Lane. It has a 5'6" tall fence very close to the front of the street. So we think that we're not setting a precedent here by having a taller fence. We think it's congruous with a commercial building. And we know there's very few of those in Oakwood. Because it's a corner lot, there's really no rear yard here. We're allowed to have a taller fence in a rear yard, but there really is no rear yard in this case. So we kind of see that as a hardship. And then the way the lot's configured too, the building being pulled so close to the street, almost a 0 lot line situation, as was common with commercial buildings. There's really no front yard either. So we'd like to propose that the commission could allow this fence to happen. It would be appropriate for a commercial building, and it would not set precedent for residential structures, which make up the majority of the historic district.
Thank you for sharing that. Are there any questions from the commission for the applicant? Sorry, I believe that no one else has signed up to speak. There's just the one. So are there any questions from the commissioners to the applicant? John Reed?
Hey, Will. I wanted to kind of follow. Why is 4 feet so important? Why not 4? I mean, you're 6 inches lower at 42.
The clients keep dogs, and they really felt like it was additional privacy and a safe height for their dogs.
Okay. And why an awning versus a pergola that you mentioned earlier that was approved for the other properties or that you saw in the neighborhood? Why not follow through with something that's more in line with that?
So 2 things. A pergola doesn't seem appropriate for that sort of commercial saloon front sort of parapet wall. And on the main building, the building, we've been approved, or we're in the process of being approved for minor work for a retractable awning, and so we'd like to match that.
I understand, and this is where I have got to check out. I'm so sorry. I apologize.
Got 3 minutes.
I know. Let me just say real quick that we had a similar case with a fence that was on a front-facing street in the Glenwood district that was denied simply because we stuck with the 42-inch height. And so regardless of whether it is a commercial property or a residential one, I'm inclined to kind of stick with what we've done before and sticking to that 42-inch thing. Regarding the awning on the front, because it's a fabric awning, and the original structure was just the flat front, I'm inclined to kind of deny that awning and put the awning on the back. I think would be okay, but I know this is not part of the discussion we're having with the in-house. I just wanted to kind of give you my take on it before I have to jump away, and I got to jump away right now. I'm so sorry. Thank you.
Do we need to vote for John Lee?
I think you just need to defer the case at this point because you don't have a form.
Do we need a vote to defer?
If John's gone, technically it doesn't have any effect, but I think that's just the reality. You can't continue to conduct business without a quorum.
Do we have enough people to bring Janine back after we defer?
I think it'd be all right if you just invite Janine back without taking a vote on that.
Okay, do I need to state anything formally about this case is being deferred due to the lack of
the
quorum?
record? Yeah, the record should indicate that Mr. Reese had to leave, resulted in you're not having a quorum.
All right. Okay. Inviting Janine back as chair.
All right, I'm back. All right, so that was, I guess that's just a circumstantial, unfortunate situation. Apologies to that applicant. And I guess that means they're on our agenda for next month. Correct?
Janine, I think that's probably the best way to proceed. That's what I would recommend, unless they just want to wait around for John to reappear. Because I just, at this point, that's a difficult situation.
Well, I should maybe not be the person to make this call, but regardless of the fact that I was just recused, I feel like that would be something to present to the applicant to give them the choice, because it's an awfully, unusual circumstance we have here, and whether they want to wait to take their chances that John comes back and we can continue or not, I would suggest that's up to the applicant. How does the rest of the commission feel about that? Thumbs up?
Yes.
Okay. Is it okay if I ask the applicant that, or should I leave Verche in charge here?
I think it's fine. It's just a procedural matter.
Okay. Applicant, Mr. Alphen, would you like to sort of stay on the side here in the event that we have our Commissioner John Reese comes back, we can continue? Or would you like to defer to next month?
That's a tough question. I understood from earlier that possibly Mr. Fountain might be joining the meeting later. Do we know whether that's going to happen?
This is Aaron. I don't think that we can count on that. We're proceeding as though he won't be able to join.
And was there any intelligence on when John Reese might return?
I see that there's a message. I'm sorry. Somebody wants to speak to that. I saw something about 15 minutes perhaps, so.
That's my understanding as well, Janine. This is Aaron, although that's not guaranteed either, and there are other cases waiting. So it's we're not sure.
I mean, this is Colette. You could certainly defer for the time being and return to it at the end of the agenda.
Okay, well, yeah, I definitely would prefer not to wait 1 month. So I assume all the other, are you guys able to hear the other cases without John Reese? Because you are, because Janine's not recused. I got it.
Right. Correct.
Okay, so yeah, let's we would like to defer until the end of the meeting.
All right. I think we will make that happen then. So just to be clear, does that mean we slip this in after the last new case before we move on to the evidentiary hearings?
This is So we're already in the evidentiary hearing portion.
Oh, I'm sorry about subdivisions, I meant.
Sure, yeah, we could revisit it before entering the subdivision portion of the meeting.
Okay.
Raz, is there anything that needs to be said or covered here?
Janae, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
My video is acting up on one computer. I've got a second one, so I might suggest in a few minutes if we could have a brief break, and I'll be re-invited to the meeting and switch over to a different computer. And I think you all have the discretion to set the agenda, to make modifications in the agenda. Ordinarily, you take them in turn. The only concern I would have is if by some chance you bog down and it gets to 9:30 thereabouts and you still have multiple cases. I mean, that's your call how long to stay, but that could be that may be something you have to deal with a little later in the evening.
This is Colette. I was trying to say earlier, I've heard from the applicants for the subdivision, and they also had something come up. So they were going to request to be deferred to the next meeting anyway. So there's one fewer application for you to discuss this evening.
All right. That's good to hear. I would say, does it make sense, commissioners, I'd like to offer up that maybe this is the right time to take a brief break and then come back in, say, 10 minutes. Does that seem appropriate to do?
Yes.
All right. Okay, so it is by my watch 7:49, so we'll be back at 1 minute before 8. Okay, thank you.
So John has returned, Harold is here, and we now have a quorum to continue case 0064-2021. Okay, and with that, we left off at, do any of the commissioners have any further questions for the applicant? And John, I know you were a bit rushed in some of your comments, so if there was anything that you wanted to express or reiterate, feel free to do so as well.
Thank you. Sorry about that, Will. I didn't mean to cut you off. I feel bad about that. I just wanted to kind of comment more about relative to the fence more than anything right now, because I wanted to reiterate again that we had a case in our neighborhood where it was a side yard that and it was a scenario where it was a corner property, and the applicant, it was an after the fact scenario where they had put in a higher fence than 42 inches. And it was one of the first kind of scenarios that we had to kind of deal with in the Glenwood, Brooklyn district. And this case is very similar because that fence is, while it may be not in the front of the place and it's kind of in a side yard, it's still a street facing fence. And similar to the previous case, it was a scenario where they had dogs and they had, functional reasons why a higher fence would be appropriate. But the guidelines basically held our hands in such a way, even though I voted to, approve it, it was not something that passed across the board. And relative to that, I want to follow through with being consistent, even though I just wanted to let you know that a 42-inch scenario is a pretty hard line thing that we're probably going to, or that at least I'm going to have to kind of stick with based on what we've decided before in the past, not because of anything that I have an issue with relative to the fence that you proposed. And back to the scenario too of the awning over the front face, because it's fabric and because even though this is a non-contributing structure, it was approved through our COA to fit within the historical context of the neighborhood. And by adding, I think we can only look at scenarios really that fit within the existing context, even though this is a non-contributing structure. So I think that while the awning in the back and the glass, and I like your term, operable window, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think subtly created. I think that any covering over the front is going to have to be more in line with what's going on in the historical nature of Oakwood versus being a fabric and introducing a new material. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Harold, did you have any questions or comments for the applicant?
I agree with John as far as the awning placement. I think it's fine in I think that's the south side of the garage in the back. But another question I had along with that, I'm trying to find the sheet here. The panels, the opening panels, are they transparent, or will there be some type of film to cover them, or what is just trying to get an idea of what this garage door looks like on the south side.
I'm pretty sure staff gave us feedback that they had to be transparent. But from my understanding, we could add a removable film on the inside, which to create privacy.
Okay.
So I would like to answer John's questions if no one else has. If no one else
Sure,
has any questions.
absolutely, go ahead.
So I really think that the context of this building is the building itself. It's unique in historic Oakwood. The design and styling of this building, and if you look at it, it looks kind of like it belongs in some Western, ghost town with a sort of a saloon front. So just in regards to the awning, staff has, and maybe staff can speak up, but I think we are in process with minor work that approves a fabric awning that's retractable on the front of the historic structure. So we're just merely trying to match that. And the non-contributing structure does have that sort of same saloon sort of facade frontage, kind of match that main frontage that we're doing on the that's on the existing historic structure. So it really seems like those things play very well together. And so that's my thought on that. And if we feel like we can't, because of you guys having only 3 people can vote on it, and that is a quorum, it has to be unanimous. I definitely would like some time to get some more precedents together if we don't think we can get there on that one. In regards to the fence, I think the thing that's really important to remember here is that this building was built again as a commercial structure. It's pulled very far forward on the property. There really is no front yard. The fence would be behind what you would consider the front of the building. There is no rear yard. And a commercial structure would likely have had a taller fence to hide, the gas cans and the trash cans and who knows whatever else might have been going on behind a function like that. So we feel like, when I was a historic district commissioner on the COA committee, we would often write conditional, approvals, and that condition could be such that, it would have to be a building that was built originally as a historic structure, as a commercial structure, sorry, to allow a fence to be any taller than 42 inches. Like, I think that's something that wouldn't be precedent setting, that is defendable. So those were my thoughts on that. And I think any other kind of overhang over that garage door, stylistically just wouldn't make sense for that building. I guess that's back to my thought that this building is the context. So, it has this sort of unique style within, all the different styles that exist in Oakwood.
John?
Let me come back on that. The awning itself does not is not an issue for me as much as it is the material. I think if this were in keeping with some other material that were relative to the commercial look of the and it's a house now, as I understand, it's a residential property. It is not a commercial property.
It has been used as a commercial property consistently throughout its entire lifespan.
Oh, it's commercial now.
That's right. The most recent owner had his architecture studio in there. Our owner will have a photography studio. In a part of it, there's been a guitar shop in there. There's been a studio in there.
Then I think that reiterates my suggestion here is that the awning, I think, it's the materiality of the awning, not necessarily an awning by nature or concept. I think if it were along the lines of the materiality of the existing structure, I think I would be more comfortable with it. And unfortunately, this is the 42-inch guideline issue is there. I don't know that 6 inches is enough to separate it from a commercial issue from a residential one, because the trash cans and things like that are above 4-foot height anyway. So I'm afraid that just the guidelines themselves based on oak wood, and because they're so tight, I'm not willing to kind of move on that front, but I would be able to consider the possibility of another material for that front awning versus fabric.
Well, I would like to move to defer so that we can do a more thorough job of getting some evidence for you guys to continue to make our case.
I'm okay with that if you're Versailles.
I am, and I'm not quite sure what I need to say in order to.
Well, let me make a motion that we defer this case pending further evidence from the applicant to explain their concept in more detail and more clarity.
Do we have a second to that motion? Second. Any discussion? I think the one discussion point that I actually would like to add, there is reference to the retractable awning or an awning that has been approved adjacent to this. That is seems to be pretty important. So just if staff could also provide us more information about that as well, that would be great. Okay, with that, should we take a vote? All in favor of deferring this application? Okay, and that is John, Brochet, and Harold. So that is unanimous, and that motion carries. Thank you so much to the applicant for waiting for us to kind of get it together and come back together to have a quorum. And we'll look forward to hearing from you next month. And with that, I also will invite or move that Janine kind of returns to us. Hi, Janine. Okay. And assumes the role as chair for this meeting. Any objections to that? I think I'm supposed to ask. No objection. All right.
All right. Thank you. Okay, so we're moving on to the next application, and staff, can you let me know who's signed up to speak on behalf of this case?
Yes, our applicants are Ashley Morris and Chris Smith.
Okay. And I will administer the oath to you both. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Ashley Morris?
I do.
Thank you. And Chris Smith?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
All right, if you're ready for me to begin, I'll start. This is case COA 76-2021 for 519 Mosley Lane. It is in the Oakwood Historic District, which is a general HOD. The request is to construct a house, install driveway, remove 6 trees, and remove a fence. Next slide. So this is a view of the current lot from Mosley Lane. It's currently vacant. There is a fence on the property, but other than that, it's just vegetation. Next slide. Now, this is a view peeking over the fence. Next slide. Staff suggestion is to approve with conditions.
All right, thank you for that. Do the applicants like to speak to this case?
Sure. We're happy with the staff comments and the conditions. Like it was said that this is a new house that's being built on a lot. The house will front Mosley Lane. It is a small lot, but we've shown in the application that that's not typically, it's not really unique to Oakwood, that there are several situations where a house has been put on a smaller lot like this. The house has a 1,600 square foot footprint. It'll have a deck in the back. and then a small carport to the side with a driveway. It's gonna be on the same side as the new house on Mosley Lane that was approved, I guess, 2 or 3 hearings ago. And we've included that into the application as well. But we're here to take any questions, comments, anything that the committee would like to ask.
All right, thank you, Ms. Morris. Are there any questions for the applicant? John Reese?
Hi, Ashley. I just got to tell you one thing off the bat that I really appreciate the presentations that you give us because they're thorough. You obviously have done this enough to where you kind of know how to tug at our heartstrings graphically, and I appreciate that immensely. I specifically adore this specific page that you did with showing the neighborhood, because that's what we're about, is the neighborhood in terms of how it reinforces and or detracts from the architectural character of place. And as far as the design goes, I was very impressed that it was a quiet, simple, and clear-cut construct. The only question I have is, I notice on this site plan here that the carport structure is outside the setback. That kind of struck me a little bit because I was concerned. We've had another scenario where another applicant wanted to put a carport and didn't show us the setback lines. And in reality, I think it was over the setback. Until I looked at, again, your neighborhood context, which shows that the lot next door to it is not a house, but it's the continuation of the overall lot that extends all the way down to the street on Mosley Lane. My concern, though, is that if that neighbor at some point in time decides that they too are going to subdivide their lot and put another house next door, your carport structure is still outside the setback. Is there any way you can get that carport to where it's inside the setback line?
I think so. I think there's also a couple of areas in the UDO where and carports are a little bit different, I know. That the overhang of the carport can be 3 feet away from the property line.
Right.
So it's more about getting those columns and piers
Correct.
back in.
Correct.
And I believe I can do that. So
okay.
we can provide staff with that new site plan. Yes.
That is the only issue I had. Everything else I thought was just lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'll go ahead and ask a question, Ashley. So I know that looking at the tree protection plan, there's about 13 trees that are regulated that are being removed. And are there any thoughts of replanting or planting any trees to sort of just balance out that tree canopy?
We did say that we would add 2 additional new trees onto the property.
Okay.
And I think we said they would be black cherries, but we have an arborist on board that we can talk to about what exactly would be best for the lot. But yes, we do plan to at least plant 2 new trees.
Oh, great. Okay, I'm sorry I missed that, but I appreciate that. Hearing that, that sounds good. Are there any other questions for the applicant? All right. Does anybody feel like they can make a motion? John Reese? Oh, you're muted, John.
Thank you. The only question I've got in terms of making this motion is how we go about adding the condition or adding the scenario about the setback. Because there's nothing in the staff comments and or conditions that express that. I think that's something that we can add when we make the motion to approve the scenario, because there's nothing, I think, we just have to add it to the staff comment. We have to add it to the staff conditions, I think, at the very end. Is that right?
I think that sounds right.
Okay, all right, fine. Then I'm good to go. Based on the information contained in the application, staff's evaluation, and the evidence in this public hearing, the construction of a new house, installation of a driveway, removal of 6 trees, and removing and installing a fence are not incongruous in concept according to guidelines 1.3.2, 0.6, 0.7, 0.9, 0.12, 1.4.1, 0.8, 10, 0.10, 1.5.5, 0.6, 0.9, 3.3.1, 0.2, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, 8, and through 12. However, the removal of healthy trees, and I'm going to stop there. I'm not even going to say that part about the however. With the following suggested facts, 1 through 36.
All right. Is there a second to that motion? For Shay Height seconds. Is there any discussion? All right. All in favor, raise your hand. And for Shay Height, Harold Millette, John Reese, and I all raised our hands. Is there a second motion?
Yes, I move that the committee approve the application with the following conditions, 1 through 6, with an additional number 7, stating that the carport structure of the columns themselves stay within the setback of the property line.
I had a question maybe for staff that I'm still not seeing where there's the applicant has stated they would replace 2 trees or replant 2 trees. So I'm just making sure that that isn't something we have to add as conditions.
And I'm happy to make that amendment to the
This is correct. It was included in the application.
Thank you. Okay, so I don't think that's necessary. Thank you.
Good.
Okay. And I guess the other thing I would ask is how does that carport structure, does it, we're not going to need to revisit that as long as it's
as long as the columns are within the setback of the.
okay. Yep. Okay. Is there a second to that motion? Harold Millette seconds. Is there any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Aye. That's Harold Millette, Vershay Height, John Reese, and myself. So that's unanimous, and that motion passes. So thank you to the applicants for your patience, and staff will work with you moving forward. All right. So we're on to the Martin Street case. Is there anybody who needs to be sworn in for this one?
Yes, we have Ethan Page and David Maurer.
Okay. All right, Ethan Page and David Maurer, do you both solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And that, please speak your name and your address and your I do.
Ethan Page at 711 New Road, Raleigh, North Carolina, and I do.
Thank you.
And David Maurer, 115 and a half East Hargett Street, Suite 300, Raleigh.
Okay, thank you. And that was an I do from you?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, I think we're ready for the staff to present the case.
All right, this is case COA 87, 2021 for 224 East Martin Street. It is in the Moore Square Historic District, and it is a general HOD. The request is to construct a roof deck and stair tower, replace roof, and install exterior lights. Next slide. This is a view of the structure from East Martin Street. Next slide. This is a view from standing in Moore Square, looking back towards the structure. Next slide. This is a view on Blake Street, looking towards the structure. You can see the rooftop in question where the poles or on top of the brick building there. Next slide. This is a view from Person Street looking towards the structure. Next slide. And this is a view from further down Person Street looking across the parking lot back at the structure. Next slide. Staff's suggestion is to discuss the visibility of the proposed roof deck and stair tower and whether or not it compromises the character of the historic district. And pending the results of that discussion, staff suggests the application be approved with conditions.
Okay, thank you. All right, would either Mr. Page or Mr. Maurer like to speak?
Yes, this is Ethan. I'll just say thanks for everyone's time, and we are here for any questions.
Okay.
Ms. McAuliffe, let me clarify, if we could go back to the photos of the structure on the roof.
Staff, can we pull that back up?
Yeah, wait,
give me just a moment. Sure.
Yeah, that's fine right there. So this is not, in fact, the stair tower. What we were requested, so this is a historic tax credit project, and we're working with the State Historic Preservation Office about, we actually originally, the client wanted to put a roof over the entire roof deck. And we were working with SHPO to mock up where that roof deck the roof would actually be. So these are actually posts of the corner of where the roof deck is, and not what we're proposing. I mean, working with them, in the initial, they didn't have any problem with the stair tower itself. The question was the roof over the deck, and obviously the deck itself is not visible. So we had to mock this up and take these photos, and we all concluded that it would be way too visible for the tax credits or for a COA. So we are not doing a roof over the roof deck, just to clarify.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. All right. Are there any questions for the applicants from the commissioners? Okay. Well, let me go ahead and close the public hearings and we'll move to internal discussions. What are the thoughts, John Reese?
I have no issues with this application. I think that they could have sold me with one drawing rather than all the elevations just by showing me a perspective similar to what they did that SHPO issue by just showing what you would see where the stair pops up on the roof. That would have been helpful enough for me, but I can conclude from the elevations and the drawings and everything like that, that this stair tower will not have much impact, or the stair housing won't have much impact from the street in terms of where you're going to see it. So I really don't have any issue one way or the other. And I think that the evidence that they present in terms of the roof terrace scenario is fine. I think it kind of falls in line with what else is happening in that district. I'm very glad to hear, though, that they took the roof off, and I'm glad SHPO caught that before we had to say no.
Is there any other thoughts on this? Verche Hype?
Yeah, I'll just add really quickly that I agree with John. And, you know, I appreciate the kind of rigor with which they approached this in the post and making sure that it was prioritizing, you know, respecting the historic structure. And that, again, the deck is appropriately sized that you really won't see it, and that it doesn't have that additional kind of roof over the deck. So I think, no issues with the application for me.
I will follow up on something John said too, that a perspective would actually have only reinforced the, just, you know, I think our findings that this from the street will not be visually too intrusive. So I think the elevations are showing its size as well, but that perspective would have almost like a little tiny 3D would have been really helpful as well. But I agree with the comments that have been said. John Reese. And there you go.
Yeah, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion.
All right, please do.
Thank you. Based on the information contained in the amended application and the staff's evaluation in this public hearing, that installing a roof deck and constructing a stair tower are not incongruous in concept according to guidelines 2.5.1.10.11, and that the following suggested facts. And that the visibility of the proposed stair tower is not incongruous according to guidelines 2.5.10 with the following suggested facts. Thank you. 1 through 11, and that installing new lights is not incongruous according to guidelines 1.7.4.9.10 with the following suggested facts 1 through 2.
All right, is there a second to his motion? Verche Height seconds that. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. And that's myself, Verche, Harold, and John, unanimous. And is there a follow-up, John?
Yes, I'd like to move that we approve the application with the following conditions of staff 1 through 3.
Okay, is there a second to that? Verche Height seconds. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. That's Verche, Harold, John, and myself. So that passes unanimously. Thank you to the applicants. And we move on to Fayetteville Street, 209. Is there anybody to speak on this case?
Janine, this is Erin. We have two folks here to speak, Eddie Gontrum and Elizabeth Robinson.
Okay. All right. Mr. Gontrum and Ms. Robinson, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Mr. Gontrum?
Yes, Eddie Gontrum, 5100 Unicon Drive, Suite 103 in Lake Forest. Yes.
Thank you. And Ms. Robinson?
Yes, Elizabeth Robinson at 2628 St. Mary Street, Raleigh, North Carolina. Yes.
Thank you very much. All right. Do you all have any comments to speak to the project after seeing the staff report? Anything?
I'll present it quickly.
Sorry, I missed that. Yep. Sorry
There's not too much to it. So case COA 89/2021 for 209 Fayetteville Street in the Moore Square Historic District. I will note, in case there's any confusion here, you can see in the map that it spans from Fayetteville Street to South Wilmington Street. The parcel does. We're actually talking about the storefront fronting on South Wilmington Street, but it's a part of this larger address. So the request is to remove the storefront entry alcove and install a new door. This is an image of the storefront on South Wilmington Street. And another image where you can see the alcove a little better. Up close image of the existing storefront and alcove, and a detail shot of the door. Staff suggestion is to approve with conditions.
All right, thank you very much. And so for the applicants, is there anything you'd like to add?
This is Eddie Gontrum. Basically, the owner of the building has experienced issues over the years with this alcove. It sets off several feet from the front of the building and provides a lot of privacy for we'll just say acts that they care not to experience when they come into the building first thing in the morning. So the entire goal of this is
to push the door closer to the right of way, flush with the front of the building actually, so that that alcove is actually eliminated and their staff does not have to endure that experience any further. We're trying to match the fabric that's already there, the architecture that's already been in existence. The alcove, as we understand it, is not part of the historic nature of the facade. So we felt like we were trying to be true to the building, but at the same time provide the owner the necessary security that they frankly just need to exist.
All right, thank you for those comments. Are there any questions for the applicant?
And this is Elizabeth. If I
Sure.
don't know that I can add much to Eddie's comments. I think he covered it well, but I'm president of 209 Retail Partners LLC that owns 209 Fayetteville Street. And as Eddie described, this really came about primarily due to safety concerns, not just for our employees, but for our tenants, and feel that this change would also present a positive aspect for the pedestrians and passersby if we can make that entry flush and a safer environment, and also aesthetically pleasing, and just keep within the historically significant portions of that Wilmington Street storefront. I would also just note that that is a secondary entrance to our building, so so that has limited use in certain aspects of the day. The primary entrance is our Fayetteville Street entrance, but I think Eddie explained the nature of the project well.
All right, thank you, Ms. Robinson. Are there any additional questions from the commissioners for the applicants? And I don't have any either, so I would like to close this portion of the hearing to the public and open it to internal discussion and thoughts. And I personally don't have I don't have any issues with this, and I don't know if anybody has any other thoughts or if anybody would like to make a motion.
I'm happy to do it.
John Reese.
Thank you. Based on the information, I move that based on the information contained in the application, staff's evaluation in this public hearing, that removing a storefront entry alcove and installing a new door is not incongruous in concept according to guidelines sections 2.9.1.6.7 with the following suggested facts 1 through 10.
All right. Is there a second to that motion? Verche Height seconds. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Aye. Verche, John, Harold, and myself. Unanimous. And is there a follow-up?
Yes, I move that we approve the application with the following conditions, 1 through 3 as provided by staff.
All right. Is there a second to that motion? And Harold Millette seconds. All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. And that's Harold, John, Verche, and myself. So that's unanimous. And that's approved with conditions. So thank you very much for your patience to the applicants. And I think we have just said that the subdivision case is not going to come before us today. That's been deferred to next month.
Yes, if you would just vote to defer that on the applicant's request.
All right. John Reese.
I move that we defer the application until next month.
All right. All in favor? Raise your hand, and that's unanimous. So that case is deferred, and we move on to deferred applications not being heard. And I don't think there's anything to do on that first one, the 517 South Person Street. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Just deferred till we can be in person. And then the second one, a vote is needed on the Dorothea Drive
correct
case. Okay, so we need to vote whether or not to defer that till next month. And are those applicants actively communicating with us, or what's the status?
Yes, so the application was, the portion that was deferred was the Port Cochere, the discussion that you referenced earlier. And she we did discuss after the last meeting, not ready to move forward at this time, but we'll check in when the application is ready.
Okay. So is there a motion to defer, vote on a deferment? Okay. All in favor of deferring this case to next month? And that is unanimous, Harold, John, Brochet, and myself. So that case is going to be heard next month. And moving on to other business. Is that staff wants to comment on the DRAC joint meeting?
Sure. So that is scheduled for Monday. I'll be sending out the invitations tomorrow. Didn't want to confuse you with tonight's meeting. Have too many invitations in your inbox. But DRAC has one case on their agenda that they are reviewing. So DRAC reviews are 30 minutes. So we're going to ask that you not join that meeting until 5:40 to prevent any potential conflict of interest there. So they'll do their official business first, and then you guys will hop on to have the discussion. I think the only other thing that we have for you to know is that potentially, and we'll be able to confirm officially for you next week, it looks like July will be, the July COA meeting will be in person, potentially. It's looking very likely that that's the case. So that will be fun. It'll be great to see you guys if that happens. We have only one new application that was submitted for July. So with the 2 cases and the subdivision that you deferred, it should be a pretty light agenda with only 4 cases.
And we'll have our new chairperson in place.
Yay. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll get all that settled.
All right.
Yeah, Janine, you really, I mean, sorry, Verche. Oh, look at that. Y'all are getting practice. I feel like this is a terrible meeting to get your first practice, but we'll be in person next time so you can start getting the habits.
So enough about the virtual, Verche. You got to get into the in-person now.
I'm ready.
Yeah.
I think. Maybe not.
All right, great. All right, well, what do I need to formally do to wrap this up here?
Janine, let me just say one thing, if not to be presumptuous, but if y'all would like for me to send an email to Nick and just tell him everybody missed him and is thinking about his wife and hope everything goes well.
Please do.
Not necessarily speak for you all, but I'll be happy to volunteer for that if you'd like to send them.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right, well, we've reached the end of the meeting, so what do I do to formally end this meeting?
Without objection, the meeting is adjourned.
Without objection, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Appreciate it.
Bye, y'all.